At some point, you started putting yourself second, and you didn't even notice. It showed up in small ways. Saying yes when you meant no, staying quiet to avoid tension, giving your energy even when you had nothing left. And over time, that became your normal. But here's the truth most people avoid. The more you neglect yourself, the more the world expects it from you. Not because people are cruel, but because you've taught them that your needs come last. So let me be clear with you. No one is coming to put you first. That decision is yours. And every day you keep postponing yourself, you lose a little more of who you are. This is where Stoicism comes in. It teaches you something simple but powerful. Your time, your energy, your peace are your responsibility to protect, not later. Now. You weren't meant to live like a background character in your own life. You weren't meant to constantly adjust just to keep others comfortable. And today that changes. Because the moment you choose yourself without guilt, everything starts to shift. Before we go further, be honest for a second. When was the last time you made a decision just for you, without explaining it or feeling guilty after? If it's been a while, you already know why you're here. If this is hitting you, subscribe. And tell me in the comments, when was the last time you truly chose yourself? Or simply write, I choose myself now.
Esta noche, cuando cierres los ojos, todo seguirá ahí. Las preocupaciones, el ruido mental, esa sensación de no poder desconectar. Pero déjame decirte algo, no es normal vivir así. No es natural acostarte agotado y aún así no encontrar descanso. Hay una razón por la que tu mente no se apaga. Y también hay una forma de silenciarla. Dime, ¿estás listo para dejar de pelear contigo mismo cada noche? Te mostraré cómo aplicar principios estoicos para reducir la ansiedad nocturna, dejar atrás la negatividad y preparar tu mente para un descanso profundo y reparador. Porque dormir bien no empieza en la cama, empieza en tu interior. Y hoy vas a recuperar ese control que creías perdido. Si sientes que tu mente no descansa como debería, suscríbete y únete como miembro para acceder a contenido exclusivo que puede ayudarte a recuperar tu calma. Y ahora dime algo. Cuando llega ese momento en el que todo se apaga, ¿qué haces tú antes de dormir? ¿Te cuidas o te abandonas? Te leo en comentarios.
Seneca understood this perfectly. He warned that we don't lack time. We lose it by giving it away carelessly. And not just in big decisions, but in small daily ones. Moments where we say yes without thinking. Moments where we delay what matters to us. Moments where we choose convenience over truth. Now, here's where people usually resist this idea. They think, I can't just focus on myself. I have responsibilities. People depend on me. And that's true. But making yourself your priority doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It means approaching them from a position of stability instead of depletion. Because if you're constantly running on empty, what you give isn't your best. It's what's left. And there's a big difference between giving from strength and giving from exhaustion. This is something modern psychology has confirmed again and again. Kristin Neff, one of the leading researchers on self-compassion, found that people who treat themselves with care are not less responsible or less committed to others. They're actually more resilient, more consistent, and more capable of supporting others without burning out. Why? Because they're not constantly draining themselves. Think about it this way. If your energy was a resource you had to manage, like money, would you spend it the same way you do now? Would you give it away without limits, without checking how much you have left? Or would you be more intentional? Because that's exactly what it is. A resource. And right now, most people are living in a constant state of overdraft, giving more than they have, and wondering why they feel empty. So what does it actually look like to make yourself your most important responsibility? It's not dramatic. It's not about disappearing from the world or cutting everyone off. It's built through small, consistent decisions. It's choosing to protect a part of your day that belongs only to you, no matter what. Even if it's just 20 minutes where you're not available, not responding, not solving anything, just being. It's learning to say no without turning it into a speech, without explaining every detail as if you needed permission. A simple, I can't do that right now, is enough. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable at first, but that discomfort is temporary. The respect you build for yourself is not. It's asking yourself before committing to something, am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid of how it will look if I don't? That one question alone can change the way you make decisions. And most importantly, it's recognizing when you're about to betray yourself and choosing differently. Because that's what this really comes down to. Not productivity, not balance, not even discipline. It's about self-respect. The kind of self-respect that doesn't need validation, that doesn't depend on being liked, that doesn't collapse under pressure. There will be people who won't understand it. People who were comfortable with the version of you that was always available, always saying yes, always adjusting. And when you change, when you start setting boundaries, they might push back. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're no longer fitting into the role they were used to. And that's okay, because the people who truly value you won't need you to disappear for them to stay. They'll adapt, they'll respect it. And those who don't, were never really respecting you to begin with. At some point, you have to decide what matters more, being liked or being aligned with yourself, because you can't have both if it means constantly betraying who you are. And here's the part that changes everything. The moment you stop waiting for the right time to prioritize yourself, and you start doing it now, even in small ways, you begin to take control again. Not over the world, not over others, but over the only thing that was ever yours to begin with, your life. You stop living on autopilot. You stop reacting to everything around you. You start choosing. And that shift, even if it seems small, is what transforms everything else. Because when you take responsibility for yourself, you don't just feel better. You become stronger, clearer, more present. You stop needing constant approval. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining your existence, you simply live it. And that's the real meaning of this lesson. You are your most important responsibility, not the one you get to when everything else is done, not the one you postpone for later. The first one, the non-negotiable one. Because if you lose yourself in the process of living your life, then what are you really building? And if you're honest with yourself, you already know the answer. Lesson 2. Time doesn't come back. Do you ever feel like the days are slipping by and you have no idea where your life went? Like you're on a boat full of holes, bailing water non-stop, overwhelmed, exhausted, not realizing that you're sinking not from lack of effort, but because you're not fixing what actually matters. And the worst part, you've never stopped to ask if this was even your course, or if you've just been drifting wherever the current pushed you. That's how a lot of people live. Busy calendars and empty souls. Not because they don't have time, but because they've given it away without even noticing. Let me tell you something that'll hit home. Roberto was a programmer and a data freak. He tracked everything: website traffic, his team's performance, even the calories in his mom's cooking. Always looking out for everyone else. He recommended smartwatches to his friends, pushed his partner to see the physio, bought supplements for his dad. But he never even looked at himself in the mirror. His life had become a screen full of metrics, except his own. He'd wake up and sit in front of the computer with no ritual except a cold coffee. At 50, during a routine checkup, his doctor told him, "You're on the verge of diabetes. How much do you move during the day?" Roberto shrugged. He'd never asked himself that. He bought his first fitness tracker and the answer was brutal. Less than 1,000 steps a day. Practically nothing. That's when it hit him. He'd spent years prioritizing everything, except himself. He had lived like he was his own final project, at the bottom of his own list. Since then, he blocks out his mornings for walking, doesn't answer emails before 10, and says his health is no longer in the cloud. It's in his feet. Because having data isn't enough, my friend. If you don't make yourself a priority, not even the best algorithm can save you. And if anyone understood this clearly, it was Seneca. In his essay on the shortness of life, he wrote, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And when he said it, he wasn't talking about productivity or squeezing the most out of every minute. He was talking about awareness, about knowing exactly where your life is going, because each hour is just that, life that won't come back. Seneca knew the best investment isn't in property or stocks, it's in your hours. Because if you don't protect your time, you're protecting nothing. So if you feel like your time is slipping away without leaving a trace, hear this. First, do a brutally honest audit of your days. For 3 real days, write down how you spend every half hour. No filters, no excuses. Only then will you see where your life is leaking. Maybe in endless scrolling, in favors no one returns, in worries that add no value. Next, create your list of sacred hours, moments you reserve for yourself, even if the world's falling apart. Maybe it's the first hour of your day for movement, half an hour in the afternoon to write, 20 phone-free minutes just to think. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is that it's non-negotiable. That's your appointment with you. And finally, before you say yes to something, ask yourself this: does this deserve a part of my life? Because that's what you're giving. Not a little break, not a spare moment. Minutes that won't come back. And your answer, my friend, needs to be honest. Because your peace is worth more than a full calendar. Each day isn't just another square on the calendar. It's a chance you won't get again. And if you don't prioritize yourself, no one else is going to do it for you. But even if you manage to protect your time, there's one more thing you have to learn to guard just as fiercely. Because if you don't, everything else slips away too. Lesson 3. If you control your mornings, you control your destiny. Each morning is like a blank page. Some people fill it with complaints, stress, and distractions. Others write it with calm, focus, and purpose. The difference isn't luck, it's habit. Because what you do when you open your eyes sets the tone for your entire day. Picture your day like a train. If the first few meters go in the wrong direction, the rest of the ride will too. That's why the way you start your mornings can completely transform the direction of your life. Marcus Aurelius knew this. Before facing his empire, his armies, and the decisions that could alter Rome's destiny, he started in silence, not with meetings, not with commands, but by writing in his journal. In those early lines, by the light of dawn, he organized his mind. He prepared for the day like a warrior sharpening his sword before battle. He didn't expect the day to be easy, but he did choose how he would face it. Epictetus spoke of the same thing, preparing each morning for difficulty, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. The Stoic understood that the morning was his mental training ground. Have you noticed how just a little morning sunlight changes your mood? Try it. Step outside for 5 minutes, let the light hit your face, breathe deeply. It's no coincidence you feel better. Science backs this up. When you expose yourself to natural light after waking, move your body a bit and focus your attention, your brain literally resets. Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist at Stanford, explains that those first few minutes of the day activate your attention systems and reset your biological clock. In other words, you're telling your body and mind, wake up, something new begins today. And the most fascinating part is that the Stoics were already doing this 2,000 years ago, without knowing anything about neurons or hormones. They walked at sunrise, wrote down their thoughts, trained their bodies, and prepared their minds for the day ahead. They didn't call it science, they called it balance, because they understood that if you began in harmony with nature, the rest of your day would flow with purpose. But most of us do the opposite. You probably do it too. You wake up chasing the clock. You look at your phone before you look at yourself in the mirror. You consume news, messages, to-do lists, and let the world decide your mood. But that has to change. It's time to force yourself to grow. You can choose a different routine. You can turn your mornings into your moment of power. Because if you control those first hours, you control your day. And if you control your days, you control your destiny. Epictetus said the wise man prepares each day for whatever may come. That practice wasn't a mystical ritual, it was training. A daily reminder that you can't control the world, but you can control how you face it. If every morning you take just a moment to ask what kind of person you want to be today, you're already exercising power over yourself. And that power held for 3 months can change everything. Start simple. Before you check your phone, pause, breathe, ask yourself, what do I want to bring to the world today? It doesn't matter if the answer is small. What matters is starting with intention, not distraction. You can jot down one line in a notebook, go for a walk, drink a glass of water while you think, or just sit quietly. Those first few minutes belong to you. Defend them like they're sacred. If staying organized is hard for you, there's a modern technique that might help. Laura Vanderkam, a time management expert, suggests the 90-minute rule. Dedicate the first 90 minutes of your day to what matters most to you, not what's most urgent. That one habit creates a domino effect. Because when you start with what's essential, the rest of your day stops feeling like a race against the clock. The Stoics didn't talk about productivity. They talked about purpose. And purpose is built in small, repeated acts. If you use your mornings to strengthen your mind, organize your thoughts, and remind yourself what really matters, little by little, you'll become someone more grounded, more consistent, and more in control. 3 months of disciplined mornings can change your life more than years of winging it. Morning discipline doesn't mean waking up at 5 a.m. or following a perfect routine. It means deciding each morning that you're going to start well, even if yesterday was a disaster. It's choosing order over chaos. It's remembering that you set the tone. Marcus Aurelius said, "A man's life is what his thoughts make of it." That's why he wrote at dawn, because he knew that if he could master his thoughts at the start of the day, nothing and no one could master him after. Now you know. Be consistent with those small habits that anchor you to your purpose. Force yourself to grow, even when your body tells you to stay in bed. Because every sunrise is a new opportunity to prove to yourself that you're in command. Lesson 4. Watch what you repeat to yourself every day. Picture this. You're in a courtroom. In front of you, a stern-faced judge, gavel in hand, eyes like steel. There are no lawyers, no one to defend you. Every mistake you made this week is played back like evidence. You were late on Tuesday. You messed up that meeting. You said something awkward in front of your friends. The judge shows no mercy. He slams the gavel and declares, "Guilty, guilty, guilty." And you, sitting there, just bow your head and accept the verdict. But here's the unsettling part. That judge isn't some stranger. It's you. That critical voice that never stops. The one that turns every stumble into a crime. That courtroom doesn't exist in real life, only in your mind. And yet, you give it so much power that you start living like you're truly guilty of everything. The good news? That trial can have a new script. You don't have to shut it down. You just need to change its role. Instead of a judge who punishes, make it a mentor who guides. Because, my friend, the problem isn't what happens outside. It's what you keep repeating inside. But don't worry, you're not alone. Even the most successful people have had to silence that judge. Tony Robbins experienced it firsthand. As a kid, he constantly repeated to himself, "I'm poor. I have nothing." That script dragged him down. But one day, he changed the words. He started saying, "I'm learning to grow." That one phrase opened the door to new decisions. He stopped waiting for things to change and started acting with a different energy. His story shifted the moment his self-talk did. And look how this connects with what the Stoics already knew. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What you think of yourself is far more important than what others think of you." If the most powerful emperor in the world believed the inner voice outweighed 1,000 opinions, how can we not take that seriously? In the end, what you choose to repeat to yourself each morning either builds clarity or fuels insecurity. You've probably been there. You're giving a presentation, your PowerPoint crashes, the slide disappears, and instead of pausing and moving on, your mind blurts out, "I'm such an idiot." That phrase doesn't describe reality. It's a hammer you hit yourself with. And the worst part? You repeat it so often that next time you walk in already nervous, already unsure, already expecting failure. That's the vicious cycle. Now imagine Epictetus in that situation. He could have said, "This failure defines me." But no, he'd smile and think, "This error doesn't define me. My response does." And that's the key. You can either learn from it or throw your laptop out the window. Spoiler, the first one is cheaper and smarter. So, my friend, next time your mind starts criticizing you, try a simple experiment. Instead of launching into your usual harsh phrase, switch it for a question. If your default thought is, "I'm a mess," ask yourself, "What can I learn from this?" It may sound small, but the effect is massive. You go from boxing yourself into a label to opening up a path forward. And here's a fun trick that works better than you'd think. Talk to yourself in the third person like you're your own coach. Instead of saying, "I've got this," say your name. "Anna's got this. Carlos knows what to do." It sounds strange, yes, but studies show it actually boosts self-confidence. It's like your brain hears it from the outside and starts to believe it more. At the core of it all is this: monitor that inner voice that never stops talking. Because if you let it repeat insecurity, that's what multiplies. But if you choose phrases of clarity and confidence, you'll start to believe them and live them. It's not magic, it's daily practice. Marcus Aurelius was right. What you think of yourself matters more than anything others might say. And if you truly want to eliminate insecurity from your mind, start by taking care of the voice you hear the most, your own. So here's your challenge. What's the phrase you repeat to yourself that you know isn't helping you? Drop it in the comments. By writing it out, you're not just getting it out of your head. You're sharing it with this community, full of people like you who are learning to choose better words day by day. Because together we can prove that yes, you can be a judge with empathy. Lesson 5. Do you live with order, or are you being ruled? Picture a sculptor in his workshop. The floor is covered in dust, tools scattered everywhere, chunks of marble lying around. He tries to focus, but the chaos overwhelms him. Every shadow, every sound, every out-of-place object steals his precision, until finally, he strikes in the wrong place and ruins his work. It wasn't a lack of talent. It was his environment. That's how many of us live today. We want clarity surrounded by noise. We search for calm in the middle of disorder. We hope for discipline while trying to work in a mental workshop full of distractions. But tell me, how are you going to build a strong mind if the space around you feels like a battlefield? Your environment is the invisible chisel that shapes your character. If it's chaotic, you will be too. If Marcus Aurelius saw you right now, he wouldn't ask how you're doing. He'd look at your surroundings. He'd see the piles of clothes, the objects you don't use, the phone vibrating nonstop, and he'd know you've lost focus. Because he understood that outer order is a reflection of inner command. During military campaigns, he rode in the middle of cold, noise, and exhaustion. But inside his tent, everything was intentional. No decorations, no distractions. Just what was necessary to think. It was his way of reminding himself that even when the world was chaos, his mind could still remain calm. Now look at yourself. What does your environment say about you? I'm not just talking about your room or your desk. I mean the noise you allow in every day. Notifications, pointless conversations, endless consumption. All of that is dust in your mental workspace. You can't sculpt a strong mind if your thoughts keep tripping over the rubble of disorder. Seneca warned that the more you own, the more of a slave you become to what you have. He wasn't just talking about material wealth. He meant mental excess too. Thoughts without purpose, empty routines, unnecessary noise. If your surroundings are overflowing, chances are your mind is too. The external always finds its way inside. Your environment isn't just where you live. It's where your discipline is trained. Every object out of place teaches you to delay. Every clean space teaches you to act. If you spend your day surrounded by chaos, you're reinforcing the pattern of a weak mind, one that reacts instead of deciding. But when you choose to create an environment that inspires clarity, you're training the invisible strength of self-mastery. Think of Epictetus. He lived in such a modest home, he barely had furniture. When a thief broke in and stole his lamp, he simply said, "He lost it, not me." That wasn't just a poetic line. It was a declaration of power. His surroundings didn't control him. They served him. He lived with just enough because he understood that clarity doesn't come from owning more, but from needing less. And you don't have to become a minimalist to apply this. You don't need to throw everything away. Just keep what matters. Try something. Open a drawer and empty it. Don't overthink it. Keep only what you use, what you love, and what pushes you forward. Everything else and let it go. This isn't about becoming a minimalist. It's about refusing to live buried under things that mean nothing. A clear space creates clear decisions. And every time you choose order over chaos, you're strengthening your mind. Start with something small. A clean table before bed, a screen-free room when you wake up, an entire afternoon without notifications. Small wins repeated. Build a strong mind, because your space doesn't just reflect who you are. It reflects who you're choosing to become. Now imagine the sculptor returns to his workshop, but this time he cleans it. He places each tool where it belongs, sweeps the dust, clears the space. In that silence, he can finally see the shape he wanted to create. His hand becomes steady again. His focus returns to the marble. His work begins to take form. That's what happens to you when you choose order. You stop reacting and start building. And if it's hard to keep it up, remember this. External discipline isn't obsession. It's a mirror. Every item in its place tells you that you're present, you're choosing, you're in control. Because when you let your environment fall apart, what you're really doing is letting your mind fall apart. My friend, you can't build mental strength in a space that weakens you. The place where you live, work, or rest is training you, always. It's either pulling you toward mastery or pushing you deeper into distraction. There's no middle ground. So make every corner speak to who you want to be, not who you're trying to overcome. Sixth lesson. A golden cage is still a cage. My friend, Sometimes it looks like you have everything. From the outside, it all lines up. But inside, something just doesn't fit. Picture this. You've got a good job. You earn well. You go to the gym, you go out on weekends, you're in a stable relationship, and everyone says you're doing great. But you wake up on a random Monday with a tight chest. You eat breakfast without appetite. You head to work, and even though no one says anything wrong, you feel like you don't belong. In meetings, you smile and do what's expected, but inside the lights are off. At night, you struggle to fall asleep, and you don't know why. I'm lucky, you tell yourself. I've got no reason to feel like this. And yet, you feel it. Because you've built a life approved by everyone, except you. It's like you're living in a cage, but not just any cage, a shiny one, with golden bars, polished, dazzling from the outside. Everyone looking in says, "You're so lucky, I wish I were in there." But you know the truth. You can't fly in there, because everything you do is based on what's expected of you. Every choice you make is about keeping up appearances, not about feeling free. And that, my friend, is also a way of being trapped. But do you know who didn't fall into that trap? Epictetus. He was a slave and still understood freedom better than anyone. He made it clear with a phrase that cuts through the centuries. No one is free who is enslaved to what others think is valuable. His life wasn't easy, but it was his, because he never handed over his soul to someone else's judgment. And if he, in actual chains, could live from the inside out, how can you not at least try? But don't worry, you're not alone. Writer Matt Haig fell into that same trap. From the outside, he had everything you're supposed to want, but inside he was falling apart. Until one day he broke down and realized what he'd been ignoring for so long. Depression taught me I was living a life that wasn't mine. Sometimes your body has to scream what your soul has been whispering, but don't wait until it gets that far to finally listen. And why does this happen to us? Psychologist Nicole LePera says it's because we fall into the trap of functional success. You're doing fine, but you're not really you, and that wears you down. Because pretending to live a perfect life is exhausting. It takes up space. It erases you little by little, until one day, you don't even know what you like or what you need. You just know you can't do it anymore. So tell me, my friend, are you truly okay, or just permanently on hold, waiting for something to magically change? If it feels like you're living in a script you didn't write, ask yourself this every Sunday night. This week, did I live the way I wanted to, or the way I was supposed to? For example, did you go out to dinner with people who drain you just to be polite? Did you take on extra work just to be liked? Did you delay an important decision because now's not the right time? Did you hold your tongue in a conversation because it was easier not to make waves? If any of that sounds familiar, it's time to rewrite the script. Then, look for something you gave up out of fear, something you loved, something that moved you but you stopped doing just to fit in. Maybe it was dancing, writing, studying something that called to you. Do it. Even if it's just 10 minutes. Not to share, not to prove anything, just to remind yourself you're still in there. And finally, make a list of things you'd do if no one had an opinion. If the world went silent. If only you mattered. Pick one. Just one. Start there. Because prioritizing yourself doesn't always mean changing everything. Sometimes it's just about listening to yourself again. Because in the end, what's the point of having everything if you don't feel like yourself? The hardest cage to break out of is the one that shines, but it's also the most urgent. And the first step is giving yourself permission to be free. Even if no one else understands, even if it feels crazy. Because only you know what you need, and if today you decide to crack that door open, the fresh air that comes in will be yours. Lesson 7. Your attention has a price. I know. Everyone wants something from you, your time, your help, your advice, your instant reply. Your phone demands it, your boss expects it, your family assumes it, your friends count on it. And in the meantime, you're just putting out fires. Sometimes you even convince yourself that this is what being a good person looks like. But there's an uncomfortable truth you can't keep ignoring. If you don't choose what to give your attention to, someone else will do it for you. And no, they won't always choose what's best for you. My friend, your attention is like an all-you-can-eat buffet at a mall. Everyone walks by, grabs what they want, serves themselves without asking, and you're left at the end washing the dishes without having tasted anything that truly nourishes you. And the worst part is, you get used to it. You get used to always starting something for yourself, but never finishing it. I'm telling you because it happened to me too. Not long ago, I spent 2 weeks saying I was going to reorganize my routine to prioritize myself. Sounds very stoic, very mature. But do you know what I actually did? I organized everyone else's life. I helped my sister with her classes, a friend with his move, a colleague with a report, and when I finally had a free afternoon for myself, I ended up watching meaningless videos, answering non-stop messages, and feeling totally empty. I realized I had turned my day into a to-do list for everyone, except me. And that's when it hit me, staring at my phone screen, exhausted and frustrated. I stumbled upon a quote by Epictetus that completely threw me. Do not hand over your mind to just anyone who happens to walk by. That was the click. I realized it wasn't just about distraction. It was a silent form of abandonment. I was letting everyone else decide what I should think about, what I should focus on, and worst of all, what I should spend myself on. From that moment on, I started asking myself every day if my attention was bringing me closer or further away from the life I really wanted to live. And it's not just about willpower. The neuroscience educator known as Neurosapiens explains it clearly. Focus is a limited resource. When you spend it on tasks that don't fulfill you or bring you closer to yourself, your brain gets drained and punishes you with apathy. In one of his videos, he says, "It's not that you lack discipline. It's that you're burnt out from paying attention to things that don't matter." And wow, is he right? Now picture this scene. You're at home, finally ready to work on that project you've been putting off for weeks. You take a deep breath, make yourself a coffee, open your laptop. And just then, a message pops up. Got a minute? And of course, you always have a minute. Then comes another request, then a call, then a video. And by the time you realize it, the coffee's gone, the project's forgotten, and so are you. All that's left is noise. So what can you do to stop giving your focus away like it's worthless? When you feel like you're spinning in circles, do this. Sit down with a blank sheet of paper and ask yourself, what would make me feel proud by the end of today? Just one thing, not 10, not 5, 1. Write it down. That's your priority. And when you finish it, you'll have regained something incredibly valuable: control over your own attention. And if people are the issue, try this. Don't reply immediately. Not to the message, not to the call, not to the urgent interruption. The world isn't going to end if you take your time to answer. But you might finally begin building something that truly belongs to you. Tell me the truth. Did your attention today bring you closer to yourself or take you further away? Because if you're not paying attention to your own life, who are you giving it to? The answer, however painful, might be the beginning of real change. Because prioritizing yourself isn't about shutting the world out. It's about finally living with intention. And that, my friend, changes everything. Lesson 8. Fewer promises, more action. They say the silence of early morning is the best ally of change, and that the great ones don't make announcements, they simply show up different. A few years ago, in a small gym in Tokyo, a young man arrived every day before dawn. While everyone else slept, he hit the punching bag over and over in silence. He didn't talk about his dream of becoming a champion. He didn't post about his training. He just worked. Months went by with no visible results. His peers laughed at him. So much effort, and you're still the same. But one day, at a local tournament, That young man surprised everyone. Precise movements, controlled strength, a calm mind. He won without saying a word. When the coach asked him what his secret was, he replied, "I decided to stop talking about my plans and start doing them." That story holds an uncomfortable truth. The more you talk about what you'll do, the less energy you have left to actually do it. Every promise you don't keep weakens your self-trust. Every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," and don't, your mind believes in you a little less. And when your mind stops believing you, discipline starts to crumble. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus said something simple and powerful. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. He didn't need to tell the world what he was going to do. He preferred to let his actions speak for him. For the Stoic, value wasn't in talking about virtue, but in practicing it, quietly. But what do we do today? We confuse exposure with commitment. We think that sharing our goals will make us more accountable, when in reality it often does the opposite. Think of all the times you said you were going to change something, eat better, drop a bad habit, learn something new, walk away from someone toxic. You said it with conviction, even emotion, but without structure, without a plan. And by putting it off again and again, you taught your mind not to trust you. Every empty promise chips away at your discipline. Seneca once said, "A wise person's word is as solid as their action." The Stoic didn't measure progress by what they said, but by what they did, day after day. And that's something you can practice right now. You don't need to announce your goals to validate them. You need to build them step by step in silence. My friend, discipline isn't shown by talking about it. It's shown by doing what you said you'd do when no one's watching. 3 months of consistent action, no justifying, no boasting, no looking for applause, can change everything. Because when you follow through, your mind begins to trust you again. And that trust becomes the fuel of consistency. Doing what you said you would, even when no one's there to see it. That's not motivation, that's integrity. It's the modern version of the Stoic principle. To live in harmony between what you think, say, and do. If your words and your actions don't match, your mind splits, and a divided mind loses strength. Let your results speak before you do. If you're going to promise something, promise it to yourself in silence, and deliver it in private. Not because it's a secret, but because you're doing it for you, not for the spotlight. Next time you feel like telling the world, repeat this to yourself. I haven't earned it yet. Let the process speak for me. Silent action has a kind of power that noise never will. It's a quiet strength that doesn't ask to be seen, but changes everything it touches. While others are busy talking about their plans, you're already moving. And by the time they notice, it'll be too late. You'll have grown without saying a word. The Stoics knew daily consistency was a kind of freedom. Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius. They all practiced discipline not to prove something, but to stay grounded in the chaos of life. That strength wasn't built with speeches, it was built with repetition, day after day, action after action. So stop making promises you're not ready to keep. Start today, even with something small. Don't wait for motivation, act and repeat. 3 months of small actions are worth more than 1,000 promises tossed into the wind. Yes, noise might inspire, but action transforms. And if you truly want to grow, don't announce it. Prove it. Because the one who disciplines themselves, who stays consistent, who forces themselves to move forward even when no one's watching, they don't need to say they've changed. Their life screams it for them. Now tell me, what will you stop promising so you can start doing today? Write it in the comments. Or, if you prefer, just leave this phrase: less talk, more action. Because growth doesn't begin when you say it. It begins when you do it. 9th lesson. Be mindful of who surrounds you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your insecurity didn't even come from you, but from the people around you? Because often it's not your own voice saying, "You can't." It's borrowed voices, repeated so many times that they start to sound like your own. Surrounding yourself with people who doubt everything, criticize everything, and compare everything is like trying to run with a backpack full of stones that don't even belong to you. Imagine this. You have a simple dream, nothing crazy. You want to learn French because you dream of climbing the Eiffel Tower and ordering a coffee in French. The idea excites you. You picture yourself traveling, watching movies without subtitles, feeling proud of learning something new. One day you share this with your group of friends expecting a, "That's awesome, go for it." But instead you hear, "Ugh, that's a waste of time. Why bother?" Another one laughs. "You'll give up in 2 weeks. You couldn't even stick with English." And just like that, your excitement starts to shrink. You begin to wonder if they're right. Insecurity creeps in. That night you glance at the language app you just downloaded, feel a knot in your stomach, and close it. A week later, you don't even open it again. Months go by and you forget why you wanted it in the first place. It's not that you couldn't do it, you just adopted someone else's insecurity. And that's the danger. We don't even realize how much our environment shapes what we believe is possible. Marcus Aurelius put it powerfully in Meditations. The life of a man is what his thoughts make of it. And those thoughts? They're often built with what you constantly hear around you. Spend enough time around people who doubt everything, and soon your thoughts start sounding just like theirs. Now picture what Epictetus would do if someone told him, "Better not try, it'll probably go wrong." He'd probably raise an eyebrow, smile, and say, "That's your opinion, not reality." And he'd keep walking like nothing happened. That's the attitude of someone who knows that what matters isn't what others think. It's what you choose to do with what's in your control. You've probably heard of the Rule of 5 made famous by Jim Rohn. It says you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It might sound like a stretch, but think about it for a second. If you hang out every day with someone who complains non-stop, how long before you start doing the same? And if you're around someone who always looks for solutions, don't you start seeing more options too? Social psychology has proven this again and again. Your mood, your habits, even your worldview are contagious. Steve Jobs knew this well. He said that part of his success was surrounding himself with people who pushed him to think bigger, not those who tried to keep him comfortable. He understood that having a purpose isn't enough. You need voices around you that remind you what you're capable of, not voices that clip your wings before you even try. That's the difference between staying small and daring to grow. So what can you do to make sure your environment stops draining your confidence? Start with a simple audit. Write down the 5 people you talk to the most each day, and ask yourself how you feel after spending time with them. Lighter or heavier? Motivated or smaller? Seeing it on paper opens your eyes. Next, find someone who inspires you, and spend more time around them. You don't need to know them in real life. Listen to their podcast, read their books, watch their videos. Having that voice regularly in your day is like fresh air. It shifts the tone of your internal dialogue. At the same time, reduce how much time you spend with people who only criticize and never do anything. You don't have to cut ties completely. Just set boundaries. If you know someone always responds with negativity, stop sharing your most important plans with them. That's not selfishness, it's self-respect. Your confidence needs a space where it can grow without being crushed at every turn. My friend, you already know this. Your environment is the soil where your roots grow. So ask yourself, are you surrounded by voices that shut you down, or voices that lift you up? Because if you want to eliminate insecurity from your mind, it's not enough to change how you think. You also need to protect who speaks into your life. If you look closely, everything we've explored so far has one thing in common. Each step brings back more clarity and strength. You start letting go of what weighs you down, you set boundaries, you begin to hear your own voice again, and little by little, insecurity starts losing space in your life. But there's something more, because none of this will matter. Not the mindset shifts, not the supportive voices, if you don't take one final step, daring to shape a path that's truly yours. And that's where we're heading now. Lesson 10. The fire that burns also forges. The Stoics used to say that character is revealed in fire, not in calm. And they were right. Because when everything's going well, anyone can look strong. But when the ground shakes, when the hit comes without warning, that's when you find out what you're really made of. So tell me, my friend, how do you react when life throws you into the fire? Do you melt, or do you forge? Marcus Aurelius knew that fire well. He ruled an empire while burying his children, fighting wars and facing betrayal. Many would have lost their minds. But he wrote, "The obstacle becomes the way." He didn't say it for comfort. He said it as a strategy. Every blow was a reminder. This is training too. That phrase became his shield. And you, even if you're not ruling an empire, face your own battles every single day. Unfair criticism, loss, failure, the fear of not being enough. All of that burns. But fire doesn't always come to destroy you. Sometimes it comes to show you a strength you didn't know you had. Think of a sword. Before it shines, it has to endure the heat of molten metal, the hammer pounding again and again. Without that process, it would have no edge, no resistance. Do you see it now? The fire isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. What hurts you now is shaping you. Every blow you survive is sharpening you. Seneca would put it like this: the wise man is like fire. Everything thrown at him becomes fuel. And that's one of the most powerful ideas in Stoicism, because it forces you to ask a hard question. Are you feeding on what burns you, or letting it consume you? Picture this. Your business starts to fail. Sales drop, clients leave, and every day feels like the ground is falling out from under your feet. You know you have to go to the bank, check the numbers, face the facts, but you keep putting it off. You open your laptop and close it. You look at your phone and ignore the calls. You tell yourself tomorrow will be different, but it's not. Every day you avoid the step, the fire grows. Not because things are getting worse on their own, but because you're just standing there, watching the flames without moving. And that's when life gives you a clear choice. Walk through the fire, or let it consume you. Because that's what fire does, it shows you what you're made of. It's not just about loss or big failures, it's about those moments when life demands action and you decide not to act. But when you finally take that step, when you sit down and face what you feared, you realize something surprising. You could handle it. The fire didn't come to destroy you, it came to test you. That's where weakness burns away and clarity begins. Because the surface, the excuses, the fear, the laziness get scorched. And what's left? Strength, courage, purpose. That's the lesson life repeats over and over until you finally get it. Fire doesn't come to punish you. It comes to wake you up. But of course, the weak mind can't handle heat. It tries to extinguish every spark of discomfort. It runs from conflict, avoids challenges, complains when life isn't fair. And by doing so, it misses its chance to grow. It doesn't realize discomfort isn't punishment, it's training. Pain doesn't always destroy you. Sometimes it wakes you up. So the next time something collapses, don't just fall apart. Look at what's burning and ask yourself, what part of me no longer needs to survive? Maybe it's pride, maybe it's dependence, maybe it's fear or the need for approval. Let it burn. Fire doesn't destroy what matters. It clears away what doesn't. Remember, you don't control the heat, but you do control your response. You can scream, curse, and run away. Or you can stay where you are, steady, learning how to breathe in the middle of the flames. That choice, that pause, is what separates the one who breaks from the one who transforms. Epictetus said no strong man is forged in comfort. And he was right. No one builds character by avoiding the heat. You build it by walking through it calmly, knowing that every step inside the fire is killing a piece of your weakness. So don't run from the fire. Stay. Watch the sparks fly. Feel the heat, and remember, this didn't come to destroy me. It came to forge me. Every loss, every disappointment, every fall, it's the hammer shaping your new strength. Because in the end, the fire that burns you is the same fire that gives you shine. and when you learn to stand in its heat without losing your calm, then and only then you become someone that nothing and no one can break. Lesson 11. Freedom comes when you master yourself. A slave once walked the streets of Rome with a chain around his neck. His name was Epictetus. His body belonged to another man, but his mind did not. One day, as his master humiliated him in front of everyone, he looked him in the eyes and calmly said, "Do what you want with my leg, but if you choose to break it, know this, my body is yours, but my will is not." And when his leg snapped, he didn't scream. He smiled. That day, even in chains, Epictetus was already free. His story isn't some distant anecdote, it's a mirror. Because you too are surrounded by invisible chains. Anger, insecurity, the need for everything to go your way. The only difference is yours can't be seen. And without noticing, every time you react with rage, every time you give in to laziness or fear, those chains tighten a little more. True freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's having the power to choose not to. It's mastering your impulses, your thoughts, your emotions. It's being able to say no when everyone else is shouting yes. It's staying calm while the world burns. It's acting from reason, not from chaos. Picture your life as a wild horse. Most people cling to the reins, trying to control the wind, the road, everyone around them. But the wise don't pull harder. They calm the rider first. Because when you rule your mind, the horse follows on its own. Whoever masters their emotions doesn't need to control anything else. And that's the key so many forget. It doesn't matter how many goals you reach. If your mind is still a battlefield, you'll still be a slave. You can have success, money, recognition, and still feel trapped by your own anxiety. Marcus Aurelius understood this. In the middle of war, betrayal, and death, he wrote, "The noble man is the one who governs himself." He wasn't trying to control the empire, but his own mind. And you, has it ever happened to you? You read a message like, "Okay, do what you want," and suddenly your blood starts to boil. You don't know if it was sarcasm, if they were dismissing you, or if you were just tired. But within seconds, you're firing off an emotional reply. Then you reread it and think, it wasn't that serious. That tiny moment where you let your emotions decide for you, that was the moment you lost your freedom. Viktor Frankl, psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, captured this truth in one sentence. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose. He lived it. He lost everything, except one thing, the ability to decide how to respond to what he couldn't change. And that decision saved him. That same strength lives in you. Every time you choose not to react, you're building inner freedom. Every time you respond from calm, not chaos, another chain breaks. Practice the art of the pause. When something rattles you, breathe before you speak. Count to 3. Observe what you feel, without judging it. That tiny pause is your power. Remember, mastering yourself doesn't mean repressing yourself. It's not about bottling up your feelings. It's about not being ruled by them. It's letting your emotions serve you, not the other way around. Strength isn't about controlling your surroundings. It's about not being controlled by them. And that, my friend, is trained like a muscle, with consistency, discipline, and patience. Epictetus taught his students that no one can take away what's inside you. No one can steal your judgment, your will, your peace. Only you can give those things away. So next time you feel like you're losing control, remember, no one has power over you unless you hand it to them. Self-mastery isn't about closing yourself off. It's about setting yourself free. It's breaking the invisible chains that keep you tied to fear, laziness, or the need for approval. When you do that, nothing external can shake you, because you'll finally understand, discipline is not a prison. It's the path to liberation. Discipline yourself. Stay consistent. Force yourself to grow, not to be perfect, but to be free. Because freedom doesn't come when everything is in place. It comes when you are. 3 months of control, practice, and self-awareness can completely transform your life. not because the world around you changes, but because you will have conquered the only empire that matters, your mind. And once you do that, nothing will be able to stop you. Because growth, my friend, isn't optional. It's the most noble way to honor the time you have left. Lesson 12. Don't talk to yourself like an enemy. Picture this. You've spent the whole day with a harsh judge sitting on your shoulder. One in a wig and robe, with a scowl and an endless notebook full of accusations. He never rests. He doesn't miss a beat. He watches you from the moment you open your eyes until you go to bed. And the worst part? He's not some stranger. That judge is you. That constant judgment, those harsh words, they don't come from outside. They come from within, from you. And every time you give that voice power, you shrink a little more. Put yourself in this situation. You wake up late because you slept terribly. The moment you see the time, you jump out of bed and your first thought is, here we go again. You rush to get dressed, skip breakfast, and show up to work already feeling like the day is ruined. In a meeting, you mess up a small detail in a report, but your mind turns it into a verdict. What an idiot I must look like. The judge takes note. I'm not good at this, you repeat as you leave. Later, someone cancels the coffee date you had planned, and instead of thinking, oh well, another time, the judge slams the gavel. Of course, no one wants to hang out with you, and you believe it. Because the voice sounds familiar, it sounds like you. That judge doesn't shout, doesn't make a scene, doesn't show up with signs. He whispers, but his words weigh more than any insult from the outside. And then, in the middle of what feels like just another day, for a second you see yourself from the outside. And it clicks. That judge isn't sitting on your shoulder. He's in your mind. And he looks a lot like you. Something similar happened to actor Jonah Hill, as he shares in his documentary Stutz. For years he was stuck in a constant battle with his own image. At every red carpet, while smiling for the cameras, one thought echoed in his head. I don't belong here. It didn't matter how many successes, awards, or compliments he got. In his mind, there was always one voice louder than the rest, his own. He told himself things like, you're fat, you're a joke, no one takes you seriously. And the hardest part wasn't hearing that once. It was living with it daily, endlessly, like a silent loop. And you know how it started to change? Not with a diet, not with intensive therapy. It began the day he realized he would never speak that way to a friend. He'd never tell someone, you're disgusting the way you are. He'd never say, with that body, who's going to love you? So why was it okay to say that to himself? That's when the shift began. Not overnight, not perfectly, but it was real. He started practicing what he called the friendly voice. Every time that brutal critic showed up, he tried to respond as if he were talking to someone he cared about. I'm doing the best I can. My body deserves respect. I am more than an image. Small sentences, small wins, but like he says, if I could speak to myself the way I speak to my friends, I'd live in peace. And so he began, little by little, until that peace stopped feeling impossible. Marcus Aurelius understood this centuries ago. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And he didn't say it to sound poetic in a book. He said it as someone who had to hold up an empire and his own mind. Because if your thoughts are the foundation of your world, and those thoughts are filled with insults and reproach, what kind of home are you building to live in? Think about this. If every time you mess up you call yourself useless, if every time something fails you say, it's my fault, if every day you talk to yourself like you're your own worst enemy, how can you expect to live in peace? You can't live a calm life with an inner voice that won't let you breathe. And my friend, if you can't find comfort in yourself, where are you going to find it? Want to put into practice what Marcus Aurelius lived by? Start with something as simple as observing your thoughts like he did in his journal. When you have a rough day, stop and ask yourself, is what I'm saying to myself fair? Is it useful? Is it necessary? Because he didn't write for others. He wrote for himself to examine his mind, Filter the noise and speak with clarity. Do the same. Grab a notebook. At the end of the day, write down 3 phrases you told yourself. Then look at them through Marcus Aurelius's lens. Are they helping you grow or pulling you down? Because in the end, true Stoic discipline doesn't start with what you do. It starts with what you say to yourself. Because, my friend, if you don't become your safe place, you'll keep being your battlefield. Now tell me in the comments, what's that phrase you keep repeating to yourself that you know you need to change now? Or just write, Stoic at heart, to remind yourself that starting today, your inner voice can become your ally too. Lesson 13. Don't wait for motivation. Build structure. How many times have you said, I'll start tomorrow? You say it with good intentions, wanting to believe it, but that tomorrow almost never comes. Not because you don't want to improve, but because you're waiting to feel ready. You're waiting for that moment when your body aligns, your mind wakes up, and everything feels easier. But my friend, that moment never comes. Motivation is a fickle visitor. It shows up when it wants and disappears right when you need it most. Think of it like a match. It lights fast, shines for a few seconds, but the moment the wind blows, it's out. And then you're left in the dark, searching for another one. But no, you don't need more matches. What you need is to build a flame that doesn't rely on the moment. And that flame is called structure. Structure is what you do when you don't feel like it. It's what keeps the fire going when excitement runs out. Motivation helps you start. Structure forces you to keep going. It's habit that saves you when the emotion fades. Seneca put it another way. If a man does not know to what port he is sailing, no wind is favorable. Most people live waiting for the wind to push them forward, but they never build a rudder. And without a rudder, any excuse becomes a storm. That's why you need structure, because without direction, any distraction can throw you off course. Eric Thomas, one of the most intense speakers of our time, shouted to his audience, "When you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful." But what most people forget is that he wasn't talking about a feeling. He was talking about action. Even the most passionate people know that emotion runs out. Real change happens when you do the right thing even when you don't feel anything. Think about it. A father who wakes up every morning at 5 to work doesn't do it because he's motivated. A mother who gets up at dawn to care for her family doesn't do it because she's full of energy. They do it because they have structure. Because they understand that life doesn't wait for you to be in the mood. Life demands movement. The Stoics lived with that truth etched into their skin. They didn't act out of inspiration, but because they knew each day was a chance to train their character. Discipline, consistency, and self-control don't come from emotion. They come from commitment to yourself. If you repeat the same actions every day, even without seeing immediate results, in 3 months you'll have transformed your mind more than you can imagine. Start by designing your environment. If it's hard to wake up in the morning to work out, lay out your clothes the night before. Remove the obstacle before your mind looks for an excuse. That way, you don't have to decide. You just do it. Same with work, studies, or any goal. The less you rely on willpower, the easier it is to stay consistent. Set a minimum schedule, not a perfect one. You don't need to do it all, you just need to do it every day. If one day you can't run 10 kilometers, run 1. If you can't read for an hour, read for 5 minutes. What matters is not how much you do. It's that you don't break the habit. Structure gets stronger with repetition, not intensity. And most importantly, stop negotiating with yourself every day. If you've already decided what you're going to do, just do it. The more you think about it, the more power you give to laziness. Your mind will search for reasons to stop you. And if you give it time, it'll find them. Act before you overthink. Motivation is like the weather. It changes constantly. One day it's sunny, the next it's raining. If you depend on that, you'll never have stability. But if you build your routine, even when the storm hits, you'll still light your fire. That's structure. Think about what you could achieve if, for 3 months, you stopped waiting to feel ready and simply acted. 3 months of daily consistency. No excuses, No relying on the highs of the moment. There's no formula more powerful than that, because motivation is fleeting, but structure grows roots. The difference between someone who makes progress and someone who keeps starting over is this. The first builds systems, the second chases feelings. The first gets disciplined, the second gets excited. Motivation might carry you for a day, but structure holds you up for life. So stop waiting for the perfect day to arrive. It won't. Create a plan, stick to it, repeat it, adjust it, improve it, but don't stop. 3 months might not seem like much, but if you stay faithful to your structure, you'll see your mind, your body, and your life shift more than you ever did with motivation alone. Motivation is a visitor. Structure is your home. Build yours, and then you'll never have to wait for it to come back. Lesson 14. Real power doesn't come from speaking. Picture this scene. A room full of clashing voices, each one fighting to survive. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants the last word. Every sentence is a punch, every reply a desperate attempt to win. But in the middle of all that noise, and there's someone saying nothing, just sitting there, in silence, observing. They don't need to raise their voice to be noticed, and yet everyone feels their presence. That silence carries weight. It carries presence. It carries power. And you know what's most interesting? That power doesn't come from speaking louder. It comes from knowing when not to speak. The Stoics understood this perfectly. Epictetus used to say we have 2 ears and 1 mouth because we should listen twice as much as we speak. And he didn't say it to sound wise. He said it because he knew silence isn't an awkward gap. It's a tool that can completely transform the way you live, think, and respond. Now, let's be honest. Today, silence makes us uncomfortable. We avoid it like it's an enemy. We turn on the TV even if we're not watching. We play music even when we're not listening. We fill every moment with empty noise just to avoid facing ourselves. But think about it. What are you really doing when you fill every second with noise? You're losing control. You're handing over the steering wheel of your mind to every impulse. Real power doesn't come from saying more. It comes from deciding when to speak, and especially when to stay silent. In a world that rewards the loudest voice, silence becomes a superpower. Think about this. Someone throws an unfair criticism at you in front of everyone. Your first instinct is to defend yourself, raise your voice, answer with anger. In that moment, your mind is like an archer. Every word you fire is an arrow. If you shoot without thinking, you'll run out of ammo and impact. But if you choose your shots carefully, every word can change something. And often the most powerful shot is the one you don't take. So what happens when you choose silence? Something shifts. The power shifts. Your silence exposes the other person's insecurity, lets their words burn out on their own. Meanwhile, you hold on to your energy, your dignity, your peace. The Stoics called that freedom. Because someone who can't stay silent is chained to their impulses. They're a slave to their ego, their need to prove something, their fear of being misunderstood. But the one who learns to pause, to breathe, to observe before reacting, that person becomes the master of themselves. And no, this isn't theory. It's pure practice. Try this. Next time someone tries to provoke you, hold your silence for 10 seconds before responding. Just 10. It might seem small, but in that tiny pause, something huge happens. Your mind shifts from reacting to choosing. You ask yourself, is this really worth my energy? Or can I just move on without dragging myself into conflict? And many times you'll realize silence is your most elegant victory. You can even take it further. Practice silence with yourself. When was the last time you spent 5 minutes with no music, no phone, no distractions? At first, it'll feel uncomfortable. I get it. Noise acts like an anesthetic, and when you remove it, the thoughts you've been avoiding come to the surface. But do you know what happens if you keep going? You start to hear yourself. You begin to understand what you're feeling, what you want, what you need. In that apparent emptiness, there are answers that noise will never give you. And here's something most people don't understand. Silence doesn't just strengthen your mind, it transforms your relationships. Listening without interrupting, without thinking about your next response, creates a deeper, more authentic connection. When you no longer need to speak just to prove yourself, you radiate confidence. And that confidence, it's felt, it's respected. Now, don't get me wrong. Staying silent doesn't mean swallowing injustice or holding back what needs to be said. It means choosing your battles wisely. It means knowing that not every provocation deserves a response, and not every opinion needs to be shared. As Zeno of Citium said, it's better to stumble with your feet than with your tongue. Because impulsive words can break bridges you won't be able to rebuild. So ask yourself, do you really need to answer every provocation? Do you really have to explain every decision? Or would it be smarter to stay quiet and let your actions speak for you? Because every time you choose silence, you strengthen your self-control. Every pause before you speak sharpens your clarity. And every word you hold back is a sign that you're in control, not your emotions. Forging a strong mind isn't just about taking the hits. It's about mastering your impulse to strike back. Silence is your training ground. Every second you choose not to react, you're ripping out a piece of your weakness by the root. Every conscious pause is a hammer blow to the forge of your mind. So next time the world tries to pull you into its noise, remember this. Real power isn't about being louder than everyone else. It's about staying calm when everyone else loses control. Every chosen silence makes you stronger. Every word you don't say builds a steadier mind. And when the noise can no longer shake you off center, my friend, you'll realize that silence isn't emptiness. It's mastery. It's the proof that you've started to destroy your weakness from the inside out. Lesson 15. If you don't act now, fear wins. My friend, there's an uncomfortable truth you need to face. What's holding your life back isn't a lack of talent, time, or luck. It's your habit of waiting. You keep believing that someday you'll feel ready, that motivation will magically appear, that the perfect moment will show up. But while you're waiting, time is beating you. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we must stop talking about what a good man should be and just be one. It wasn't a moral lesson, it was a wake-up call. What does it mean? Stop planning. Act. Life doesn't reward intentions. It rewards movement. That idea should hit hard. Greatness isn't planned. It's executed. Because while you're trying to find the perfect strategy, time is doing its quiet, ruthless work. It's backing you into a corner. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk. For weeks, you've had an idea. Launch a project, write that book, send that proposal. But instead of doing it, you check your emails, scroll your phone, make another coffee. Each tiny delay seems harmless, but it's another brick in the wall that separates you from who you could be. And when you finally decide to start, it's already too late. Your energy's gone. That's the trap. Time doesn't steal your dreams. You give them away. Epictetus said that change doesn't come from words. It comes from decisions. The moment to act is never tomorrow. Tomorrow only exists for those who are fine staying exactly where they are. That idea stings because it's true. What you don't do today, you're unlikely to do later. Every day you wait becomes a habit, and the habit of waiting kills more dreams than fear ever could. The weak mind convinces itself it's not ready yet. The strong mind moves anyway, because it understands that clarity doesn't come before the leap. It comes after. It's like standing in front of freezing water. You can stare at it for hours, waiting for the right moment to jump. But that moment never comes. The longer you wait, the colder it feels. Until finally you step in and realize it wasn't the cold that hurt. It was the paralysis. That's exactly what Seneca was reminding himself of when he wrote that, while we postpone, life rushes past. He didn't mean it as a theory. He meant it as an urgent cry. He knew that most people live like this, standing by the water, waiting for the perfect temperature that never comes. And when they finally decide to act, it's too late. The opportunity's gone cold, the momentum has vanished, and the current pulls them under. Think about your day. Every time you put off a decision, you're training your brain to give up just a little faster. Every "I'll do it later" is a silent command that says, "I'm not in control." Until one day you realize you've let so many chances slip by. You can't even remember the last time you truly felt alive. Breaking that cycle doesn't take a miracle, just movement. Start with the smallest thing. If you want to read, open the book and read one page. If you want to train, go out and walk for 5 minutes. If you want to create, write one sentence. Don't aim for results, aim for momentum, because once the body moves, the mind follows. Action is like pushing a rock uphill. The first few inches are the hardest, but once it starts rolling, inertia becomes strength. You don't need motivation. You need push. Because motion doesn't come from enthusiasm. It comes from decision. And if you're afraid to fail, remember, mistakes are part of the path, not signs of defeat. The Stoics acted knowing that nothing was guaranteed. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for certainty before making decisions that shaped an empire. He acted with what he had, from where he was. And that's exactly what you should do. My friend, the difference between those who build their lives and those who just watch is a single instant. The moment when one acts and the other keeps waiting. Every day you avoid doing what you know you need to do, your will gets weaker. But every time you move, even if it's just one small step, you tear away a piece of your weakness. So do it today, not when you feel like it, not when everything's perfect, not when life finally cooperates. Today. Because if you keep waiting, one day you'll look up and realize the train left, and you're still standing on the platform. And if you're ready to break the cycle of endless waiting, I want you to declare it with strength in the comments. Today I begin, no excuses. Because only those who act shape their future. The rest just watch their fire slowly burn out. Lesson 16. Someday is killing you. Imagine Seneca in his robe telling his assistant, "Put meditation on my schedule. Once I get organized. Maybe in a couple of years." Sounds absurd, right? That's exactly how ridiculous it sounds when you say, "When I have time, I'll start the project. When things calm down, I'll take care of myself. Once this rough patch is over, I'll do something for me." Spoiler, that patch never ends. There's always something more urgent, and without realizing it, you keep postponing the most important thing, yourself. I'm telling you this because I used to do it too. I remember an interview that could have changed a lot in my career. I'd been preparing for weeks. It was one of those once-in-a-lifetime chances. But on the very day, my partner asked for help with a task that wasn't even urgent. They said they could reschedule, that it wasn't a big deal. And I said yes. I canceled. I messaged the company with some lame excuse. I thought, well, if it's meant to be, another one will come. But the truth is, it wasn't fate that closed the door. It was me. I chose to prioritize everything, except my commitment to myself. And it was after that moment that I came across a quote by Marcus Aurelius that shook me. "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." And being good, my friend, also means keeping your promises to yourself. It means no longer putting yourself last. It means realizing that the call you haven't made, the course you haven't started, the dream still on pause, it's not because you don't have time. It's because you haven't given yourself that time yet. My friend, someday is killing you. As Jay Shetty says, it's the most dangerous excuse in the world. Because someday never comes, you have to claim it. And the more you delay it, the more you convince yourself that now isn't the right moment. But when will it be? When you have less energy, more responsibilities, less hope? Do you really think you'll be more ready than you are today? If you're not sure where to start, here's a simple compass you can use. Jay Shetty's advice again. To stop putting off what matters, stop making decisions based on what others expect. Instead of asking yourself, What will people think if I do this? Ask yourself this. How will I feel in 5 years if I do it, or if I don't? Try it. Think about what you've been putting off for months. Starting to write? Being honest with yourself about that relationship? Taking the leap that scares you? Now close your eyes and fast forward 5 years. You're still in the same place. Everything is the same. How does that feel? Pride or frustration? Then come back to the present and imagine the opposite. You did it. You started, even with fear. You tried. You took the leap. How do you feel now? That comparison is powerful. Because when you stop watching the clock and start looking inward, you realize the perfect moment doesn't exist. But you do. So go step by step. First, choose one decision you've been avoiding. Write it down. Second, ask yourself, how will I feel in 5 years if nothing changes? Third, answer with brutal honesty, no filters. And finally, take action today, even something small, because you already know what'll happen if you don't, but you've yet to discover what might happen if you do. Remember this, every time you postpone yourself, you're telling the world that everything else matters more than you. But that can change, right here, today. Make it clear in the comments, I won't put myself off any longer, or just write, Stoic at heart. That will be your first step forward, the first of many. Because your life doesn't start when the world calms down. It starts the moment you decide to prioritize yourself. 17th lesson. Cut the noise, listen to your purpose. Marcus Aurelius had everything the world could offer. Power, wealth, armies, respect. And still, every night, he did something very few powerful people dare to do. He sat alone in silence and wrote. Not speeches, not commands, just thoughts, doubts, mistakes, lessons from the day. He didn't do it to leave behind a legacy. He did it to hear himself again. In one of those reflections, he wrote, Retreat into yourself. Nowhere can man find a more peaceful haven. That one line sums up a truth we've forgotten. You can't build discipline if you don't know how to listen to your own purpose. We live surrounded by noise. Not literal noise, mental noise. Notifications, messages, videos, meaningless conversations. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone is shouting. Everyone wants your attention. We jump from one thing to another, thinking we're making progress. But in reality, we're just spinning in circles. We confuse movement with progress. But discipline isn't built in the noise. It's built in clarity. And clarity only comes when you dare to stop. Imagine your mind as a lake. If the water is agitated, you can't see the bottom. But when the surface is still, everything becomes clear. That's how your thoughts work. If you never make space for silence, you'll never see what's truly driving you. And the strange thing is, many people avoid that silence because they're afraid of what they might find in there. They'd rather live in the noise than face their own truth. Seneca once said, He who is everywhere is nowhere. And tell me, isn't that exactly what's happening to us today? At work, we're thinking about our phones. On our phones, we're thinking about the weekend. On the weekend, we're thinking about all the things we didn't finish at work. A scattered mind is a silent enemy. That's why the Stoics trained focus like a muscle. They knew that if you don't control your attention, you don't control your life. Epictetus made it clear, no one is free who is not master of themselves. If you can't go 10 minutes without checking your phone, without music, without distraction, then you're not choosing your thoughts. You're just absorbing everyone else's. Every time you open your phone just to check something quickly, and suddenly an hour's gone, you're drifting further from yourself. You've heard everyone, except you. My friend, a disciplined mind isn't one that does more. It's one that knows when to stop. Because it's not just about acting. It's about acting with direction. 3 months is all it takes to retrain your focus. If you learn to create your own moments of silence, start with something simple. A daily noise fast. 10 minutes with no music, no screens, no conversation, just you breathing. letting your thoughts quiet down. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is the sign that you're reconnecting with yourself. Another simple practice: start the day without touching your phone. Don't open it the moment you wake up. Get up, breathe, think about what you want to build today, before the world tells you what to think. And at the end of the day, ask yourself one question: who did I listen to more today, the world or myself? The answer will tell you exactly where you're headed. The Stoics didn't need spiritual retreats or mantras. Their meditation was reflection. Their temple was the mind. And their prayer, discipline. Marcus Aurelius didn't seek peace in solitude. He found strength in silence. Because when the outside noise dies down, your inner voice stops whispering and starts guiding. Clarity doesn't come from more information. It comes from less distraction. It comes when you dare to be still and face what you've been avoiding. In that uncomfortable silence, you begin to understand what you want, what you need, and who you want to become. And once that understanding arrives, so does direction. Discipline, consistency, and self-control start flowing naturally when your mind knows where it's going. So cut the noise. Shut down what distracts you, even if it's just for a few minutes a day. Listen to the silence, because there, in the stillness you're so afraid of, is your purpose waiting for you. Silence isn't emptiness. It's the space your true voice needs to speak. And once you start hearing it, you'll see how in just 3 months everything starts to align. Your actions, your energy, your decisions. Not because the world has changed, but because finally you're listening to the one who's in charge. If you're ready to truly listen to yourself, declare it with one simple sentence: today I turn down the volume of the world to hear myself. Because silence doesn't pull you away from life, it brings you back to it. Lesson number 18. Protect your time like it's treasure. One day, Seneca received a letter from his friend Lucilius that said, "I don't know how, but time keeps slipping through my fingers." And Seneca responded with a sentence that should be written on every front door: nothing belongs to us except time. Almost 2,000 years have passed, and that line is still an uncomfortable mirror. Because time doesn't just slip away from us anymore, we give it away. We hand it over willingly, to screens, to noise, to comparisons, to everything that doesn't bring us closer to who we want to become. Think about it. Time is a lot like breath. Every inhale is a reminder that something is leaving and something new is beginning. You can't store the air you breathe or save it for tomorrow. If you try, you suffocate. It's the same with your days. You can't stockpile them. You either live them with intention or let them slip by without meaning. The Stoic understood this well. It wasn't about stopping time, but learning to breathe consciously within it. Seneca and his fellow Stoics spoke of otium, time well spent. It wasn't empty leisure, it was full presence. It was space you gave yourself to think, write, train the soul. Today we confuse movement with progress. We rush from one thing to the next without realizing that most of the time we're not breathing. We're gasping. We don't live time, we just survive it. Now imagine this. What if I told you that you only have 4,000 weeks to live? It sounds like a lot, but it's not. 4,000 sunrises, 4,000 chances to start differently. And yet we let them pass by like they're infinite. That, as Oliver Burkeman explains in his book 4,000 Weeks, is the average human lifespan. Not an eternity, a countdown. And understanding that shouldn't depress you. It should wake you up. Because once you accept that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter and start living it with purpose. Every breath becomes a choice. Every day, an opportunity to use your energy meaningfully. Tell me the truth, my friend. When was the last time you felt like your time truly belonged to you? Not work time, not screen time, not what you give to others. Yours. That moment where you listen to yourself, center yourself, exist without distraction. If you can't remember, it's probably because you've been giving it away without realizing. And the time you don't claim, someone else will. Seneca wrote, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste a lot of it." And he was right. We complain the day isn't long enough, but we fill it with things that don't matter. The problem isn't a lack of hours, it's a lack of focus. Discipline isn't just about doing more. It's about protecting what you do with what you have. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminded himself, "Act as if every action were your last." He didn't say that to be dramatic, but to be precise. Because living as if every breath counts doesn't mean rushing. It means living with intention. Every time you say yes to something you don't really want, you're giving away a bit of your breath, and no one can breathe for you. Saying no isn't selfish, it's mental survival. Before you commit, ask yourself, do I really want to give part of my life to this? If it's not a clear yes, it's a disguised no. Protect your moments of silence like you'd protect a safe house. Guard your pauses like they're oxygen, because they are. Carve out time for yourself without guilt, and use it to create, to reflect, or simply to be. Sometimes you don't need to run faster, you just need to breathe again. The Stoics knew that a valuable life isn't measured by how long it is, but by how deeply it's lived. 3 months of fully lived days can change more than years of distraction. That's why time control starts with something simple, learning to pause. Time is that invisible breath that reminds us we're alive. You can't hold on to it, but you can decide how you spend it. And every time you choose to use it with intention, you're practicing discipline, building consistency, and regaining control over yourself. Treat it like the air that keeps your inner flame alive. Don't waste it on anything that doesn't nourish your mind or your soul. Every minute you reclaim is a win against inertia. So here's something to try. This week, before you go to bed, pause and ask yourself, what did I breathe in today? Did it give me life or take it from me? If the second one wins, tomorrow's your chance to begin again. Because transformation doesn't happen in one big leap. It comes with every conscious choice. Discipline yourself, stay consistent, force yourself to grow. Because once you learn to protect your time, my friend, you stop merely surviving and start truly living. Lesson 19. Focus only on what's in your control. Picture this. You've been preparing for a job interview for weeks. You practiced in front of the mirror, searched for questions online, even tried on your outfit multiple times just to feel confident. The day comes, you do well, you smile, you say everything you had rehearsed, you did what was in your hands. And yet, the call never comes. Days go by, and your mind starts attacking you. I should have answered differently. They probably saw how nervous I was. I'm just not good enough. That spiral traps you. You stop sending out resumes, you avoid new interviews, and insecurity grows like a shadow that gets bigger each day. And the strange thing? The problem is no longer the interview. It's your fight against something that was never under your control. It's like being a gardener who, instead of watering his plants, becomes obsessed with making it rain. He looks at the sky every day, hoping the clouds will arrange themselves just right. He burns out, gets frustrated, and forgets the one thing that was actually his to do. Grab the watering can and soak the soil. That's how we often live, trying to control the uncontrollable. And when you pour your energy into that lost battle, insecurity explodes. Now think of an inspiring moment. During the 2008 Olympics, Michael Phelps was swimming in a final when his goggles filled with water. Picture that scene. A packed stadium, millions watching on TV, the pressure of a lifetime, and he's blind in the pool. It would have been easy to panic, but instead of fighting what he couldn't change, he focused on what was in his control, counting strokes just like he'd practiced over and over in training. The result? Olympic gold and a world record. That's the power of focusing on what's in your hands. It doesn't make challenges disappear, but it turns insecurity into real confidence. Epictetus said it clearly, some things are up to us and some are not. That's not resignation, it's a compass. It's a reminder that you don't have to mortgage your peace on land that never belonged to you. And that kind of clarity is what separates someone who drowns in insecurity from someone who moves forward with calm. Ask yourself this the next time insecurity tightens its grip. Does this depend on me or not? Because, my friend, if the answer is no, then all you're doing by obsessing over it is feeding a fire that would go out on its own if you just stop blowing on it. There's something that works incredibly well, and it's super simple. Write it down. Make a list of what's worrying you today. Divide it into 2 columns, what depends on you and what doesn't. You'll realize that half of what's draining your energy was never in your hands. Keep the first column, and the second? Burn it if you want. It's just symbolic, but it's surprisingly freeing. Another useful habit. Repeat a phrase from Epictetus that I love. I did what was in my hands. The rest belongs to the world. Every time you catch yourself obsessing over an outcome, release it with those words. Because once you've done your part, what happens next belongs to a space that was never yours to begin with. And when your mind fills up with thoughts about all the things that could go wrong, practice what I call micro-control. Don't try to swallow the whole mountain. Just take one small step that depends on you right now. Write a paragraph, send an email, make a call. Small actions within your control that restore your calm and bring clarity. That way, instead of being frozen by what you can't control, you move forward with real steps that do build your confidence. Remember what Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it's in your power, do it. If it's not, accept it." That line changes everything. Because insecurity fades when you stop fighting ghosts and choose to live inside the boundary of what's truly yours to manage. That's where noise turns into clarity, and doubt into confidence. Now tell me, have you ever obsessed over something that wasn't in your hands and ended up completely drained? Share it in the comments. I want to hear your story because that's what this community is about. Sharing experiences, learning together, and reminding each other we're not alone on this path. Lesson 20. Learn to control your reactions. Has this ever happened to you? You're calm in your car, music playing, everything's fine. Then suddenly someone honks at you in the middle of traffic. And in just 1 second, you're already building a full-blown horn war in your head. You feel attacked, like you have to respond, like you can't just let it go. The result? You go from being at peace to handing your calm over to a stranger in a Fiat Panda who probably won't even remember you. And here's the interesting part. It wasn't the horn that stole your peace. It was your reaction. Insecurity works the same way. It's not about what happens. It's about how you interpret it. Someone sends you a dry "okay" on WhatsApp and you spend 2 hours spiraling. Are they mad? Did I upset them? Was that sarcastic? Then a voice message arrives full of laughs and everything clears up. But by that point, your mind has already tied itself in knots. The insecurity wasn't in the message, it was in your reaction. Now imagine what Epictetus would do if he got that dry "okay" on WhatsApp. Do you think he'd spend 2 hours decoding secret meanings? Most likely, he wouldn't even register it as a problem. And that's where we can learn. Because the things that trigger insecurity in us only have the power we choose to give them. Picture your mind as a thermostat. The world might be in the middle of summer or winter, full of chaos or calm. But you decide whether inside you're sitting at a cool 72 degrees or boiling with rage. That's self-control. It's not about what happens out there. It's how you adjust your internal settings. And the Stoics were clear about this. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our opinion of them." In other words, peace or chaos isn't caused by events. It comes from your interpretation of those events. And while it might sound ancient, science confirms it. Psychologist Daniel Goleman, author of Emotional Intelligence, describes something called the amygdala hijack. That moment when your emotional brain takes over and the rational part shuts down. That's why you explode without thinking, as if your mind has been taken hostage by anger. The key is learning how to interrupt that hijack. Breathe, observe, give your rational mind just enough time to step back in. So, my friend, the next time life pushes your buttons, you don't need to explode or shut down. You can train yourself, starting small. Begin with something as simple as breathing. Yes, really. I know it sounds basic, but do you actually know how to breathe? Try it right now. Short inhale, then inhale a bit more, then a long exhale. Do it a few times. It may feel small, but that moment breaks the impulse and creates space. And in that space, clarity appears. Because you don't need to solve everything. You just need to take one small step, send the message, make the call, move a single piece forward. That already starts turning insecurity into confidence. Another practice, create a trigger map. For 1 week, write down every moment that makes you react without thinking. It could be a honk, an email from your boss, or even silence from someone close. Just naming your triggers reduces their power, because once you know what sets you off, it no longer catches you off guard. And don't forget humor. Yes, seriously. Next time something annoys you, imagine a comedian describing it on stage. Suddenly, that drama turns into a joke, and the moment you laugh, you reclaim control. Because clarity doesn't always show up through seriousness. Sometimes it comes the moment you decide not to take things so seriously. Seneca summed it up powerfully. The strong man is the one who rules himself. That's what gives us freedom. Because when you learn to govern yourself, you stop being a hostage to your reactions and realize that the security you've been chasing is already inside you. Turning insecurity into clarity and confidence isn't magic. It's a habit. Every time you choose your response instead of letting the world choose it for you, you're building that inner strength. So next time insecurity shows up or life tries to shake you off center, remember, the reaction is in your hands. You can't change the noise of the world, but you can decide whether you let it invade your calm. And in that choice, little by little, insecurity starts to disappear from your mind. Now tell me, have you ever lost your cool over something as small as someone cutting in line at the supermarket? Drop it in the comments, or write, "The control is mine." So we know you're here training your mind with us. After all, that's what this community is for, to remind each other that clarity is a muscle, and we train it every single day. Lesson 21. Knowing when to stop is also strength. Have you noticed there's always something left to do? That even when you sit down, your mind is still on its feet? Like stopping isn't allowed. Like taking a break means losing. But my friend, there's something you need to start recognizing. Stopping is also moving forward. Because if you don't know how to stop, you don't know how to take care of yourself. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not living, you're just surviving. The human mind is a lot like a horse. If you make it gallop without rest, one day it collapses. But a wise rider doesn't push it until it drops. He watches it, understands it, and knows when to slow down. Not because he's weak, but because he wants to keep riding. And you? Are you riding or just holding on? Think about this scene. You probably know it well. It's Tuesday. You wake up with a headache, but you down a double coffee and head out like it's nothing. You get to work and go from one meeting to the next. You eat in front of your computer, answering emails between bites. Someone asks for help with something urgent, and even though you're on the edge, you say, "Sure, send it over." You get home dragging your feet. Your partner sees the tension, but you say the classic, "I'm fine." You shower while mentally going over tomorrow's to-do list. And that night you don't sleep. Again. But the next day, you do the exact same thing. You keep telling yourself, "I'll rest this weekend." But Saturday comes, and it's packed too. What you don't realize is that if you don't stop, life will stop you. And when it does, it'll show up as anxiety, burnout, or something even louder. Then what? I used to think rest was a reward you give yourself after you've finished everything, but you never finish everything. That's when guilt creeps in. That little voice that says, "Really? You're going to stop now, with all that's left to do?" Psychologist Nick Wignall explains that the problem isn't laziness. It's the guilt we feel when we're not being productive. As he puts it, rest isn't a luxury or a sign of weakness. It's part of what lets us perform well, think clearly, and not burn out. But even when we rest, we do it wrong. We meditate with an app in hand, tracking our breaths like tasks. Can you imagine Marcus Aurelius getting a notification? Time to be more mindful. And if you don't know where to begin, take a cue from someone who did, Seneca. He didn't see rest as a luxury, but as a duty to oneself. While the world rushed by, he stopped to read himself, to think, to observe. His rest wasn't empty. It was reflection, study, growth. And he said it clearly. If you don't stop to examine your soul, you'll end up acting like everyone else, without direction. Imagine turning rest into an act of growth, not escape. That's what Seneca did, and you can do it too. Want to know how? Start with something as simple as scheduling your rest like you would a meeting with someone important. Because it is. It's with you. Block out time to do nothing, or better yet, to do something with no purpose. Go for a walk, stare out the window, breathe. And try leaving a day without plans. Let your body follow your decisions, not your schedule. If guilt shows up, write a list of all the reasons why you need and deserve to stop. Read it out loud. And remember, resting isn't quitting. It's reminding yourself that you matter too. My friend, even the tallest trees rest in winter. They don't bloom all year. And that's okay. Because they know that to grow strong, they have to stop first. If you choose to prioritize yourself, that also means knowing when to stop running. Because sometimes the truest act of self-love is sitting down with yourself in silence and saying, "Today I take care of me." Lesson 22. Your body obeys, but your mind decides. Rome. Early morning. Emperor Marcus Aurelius rises before dawn. Outside, the cold cuts through to the bone and his body trembles. He has a fever. His hands are heavy. His eyelids droop. Everything in him begs for rest. But he sits down, takes the parchment, and writes. At dawn, when you struggle to get up, remind yourself that you were born to work with others. He writes it to remind himself. Not to give in to his body, but to obey reason. In that moment, with no soldiers, no speeches, he shows the true strength of a Stoic. His body obeys, his mind decides. That scene may seem insignificant, but it says everything. The body seeks comfort, the disciplined mind seeks purpose. The problem is, most people live the other way around. They let the body lead, let their mood decide, let emotion dictate whether or not they take action. And so the days go by, waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. Your body is a soldier. It needs a commander to give the order. If the commander hesitates, the army falls apart. If the commander stands firm, the body follows. But when the mind gives up, the body finds 1,000 excuses not to move. And the strange thing is, it's not really the tiredness that stops you. It's how you interpret it. As Epictetus said, it's not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. It's not pain that's the enemy, but what you think when you feel it. Think about it. How many times have you promised to hit the gym, to study, or just to keep your word? And the moment your body complained, you gave in? In truth, it wasn't your body that betrayed you. It was your mind that negotiated. You believed the tiredness. You gave more weight to discomfort than to your purpose. And in that moment, your mind dropped its guard, and the body took control. Your body obeys the one who's most convincing, your laziness or your purpose. That's the daily battle. Every morning, one of those voices wins. That's why you need discipline, consistency, and self-control. Because only with those can you turn what's stopping you today into the fuel that moves you forward. 3 months of acting, even when you don't feel like it is enough to change your relationship with fatigue. Not because your body stops hurting, but because you learn to interpret effort as progress, not as suffering. When your body says enough, stay 5 more minutes. Not out of pride, but as mental training. Those 5 minutes, that's where willpower grows. The body doesn't understand purpose. It only understands orders. If every day you can delay your surrender just a little bit, you'll be forging a mind that doesn't break under pressure. And it's key to learn the difference between useful pain and harmful pain. Useful pain builds you. Harmful pain warns you. One gets you off the couch, the other protects you. Only a trained mind can tell the difference. People without control quit at the first sign of discomfort, but those who train their minds know. The fire that burns can also purify. Marcus Aurelius knew that. He wasn't trying to feel strong. He was trying to stay steady. His body, like yours or mine, had limits, but his mind had direction. Every day that he wrote, that he got up, that he fulfilled his duty, he reinforced that connection. The body acts, the mind commands. That is true freedom. Today, we live in a time where comfort is the new god. Everything is designed to save you effort. Food delivered to your door, endless entertainment, excuses just a click away. But the price of so much ease is steep. Because when everything becomes comfortable, you become weak, and the mind gets used to giving in. Train your body to obey, but train your mind to decide. Start with the smallest things. Get up when the alarm rings, even if you don't want to. Stick to your routine even when you don't feel like it. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Discipline starts with small actions, and if you keep at them for 3 months, you'll notice your mind stops arguing so much and starts acting. That's real transformation, going from constant doubt to automatic action. My friend, your body can give up 1,000 times, but as long as your mind stands tall, you haven't lost. Every time you move forward despite wanting to stop, you're training the most important muscle, your will. That's the strength that builds empires, keeps promises, and changes lives. So next time your body says, "I can't," smile and say, "You don't get to decide." Because the body obeys, but the mind commands. And if you can maintain that order for 3 months, you won't just change your habits, you'll change your destiny. Because in the end, the one who rules their mind rules their life. Lesson 23. Remember, you're not eternal. Imagine your life as one giant calendar on the wall. Each week is a little square, and every Sunday, without much thought, someone rips one off and throws it in the trash. One less. Just like that. Simple, cold. Now look closer. In the current week you've written down, tidy up the drawer cables and look at new sneakers, but tucked away in a corner is what really matters. Call my dad, or send that proposal that could change everything. Insecurity makes you put off the essential and fill your days with tasks that don't scare you. And the ironic thing is, while you do that, the calendar keeps thinning out. My friend, here's the trap. You think you have unlimited time, like there will always be another chance. But no, every passing day is one of a kind and doesn't come back. When you let insecurity make the decisions for you, you're not just losing an action, you're losing a piece of your life. Marcus Aurelius wrote it plainly. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Think about what that means. If today were your last day, would you still keep putting off that conversation, that project, that reconciliation? Suddenly, everything snaps into place. The essential moves to the front, and the rest crumbles. And it's not about obsessing over the end. It's about training your perspective. Epictetus said it clearly in his Curating. Get used to seeing things as temporary, as if each moment were borrowed, not from a morbid place, but from the clarity that brings. Because when you remember you're not eternal, your view shifts. What felt urgent turns into noise, and what truly matters lights up in front of you. That voice of insecurity that says, "Not yet," loses power when you understand that time won't always wait for you. Picture this. You've been thinking for months about recreating an old photo with your mom in the same place. Each week you put it off because now's not the right time, because work, because it's cold, because you're tired. When you finally go for it, she smiles, but at the end of the day, she says something that hits you hard. "I thought you'd forgotten." That moment weighs more than any fear of how the photo might turn out. That's when you get it. What hurts isn't messing up, it's the time lost. And that's what really gets to us when we realize we're not eternal. It's not the missed obligations that sting. What haunts us is not having pursued the life we truly wanted. Postponing your dreams and desires hurts more than breaking a rule. No, what torments us isn't sending an email with a typo. It's never having written that novel, never taken that trip, never dared to say what you felt. So, my friend, ask yourself now, if you weren't given one more week, what would you do with this one? Not as a philosophical exercise, but as a practical filter. You can start with something simple I call the memento trio. Each morning, pick 3 things. 1 action that moves your project forward, 1 call or message to someone who truly matters, and 1 small act of self-care you won't postpone. Maybe 20 minutes of movement or cooking yourself something decent. That's enough to give your day direction and stop living on autopilot. Here's another practical exercise. Print out a 52-week calendar and mark only the next 10. Imagine that's your real playing field. In each of those weeks, write down 1 brave action that can't be postponed. It could be sending a demo, asking for feedback, making peace with someone, or taking the first step in a dream. Whatever it is, put it in ink. Seeing it limited to 10 weeks makes urgency stop being an idea. It becomes something you can touch. Think about how your mindset shifts when you remember you're not eternal. What once looked like a massive problem shrinks. What you thought was urgent fades into background noise, and what you'd been pushing aside becomes your true priority. Turning insecurity into clarity and confidence doesn't mean the fear disappears. It means you've learned to put everything in its place. And that order only comes when you accept that time is limited. So next time insecurity tries to hold you back, picture that calendar getting thinner week by week. Ask yourself, do I want to waste this square on doubt or on decisions? Because in the end, the only ridiculous thing isn't making mistakes. It's letting anxiety run your mind. Now drop something in the comments. Write, "This week, I begin boldly," and tell me what action you're no longer going to delay. Because remembering you're not eternal isn't depressing. It's the most powerful reminder that your life is in your hands right now. Lesson 24. The process is also a victory. Imagine a staircase covered in fog. You can't see the end, only the next step. Every step you take feels small, maybe even pointless. But if you keep climbing, the fog slowly clears. That staircase is life. No one gets a full view of the summit, just the chance to take the next step. And most people quit because they can't stand not seeing fast results. They want to skip to the end, without accepting that real growth is hidden in the journey. Epictetus used to say to his students, "First, tell me what kind of person you want to be, then act accordingly." On the surface, it sounds simple, but it's actually a life-defining statement. You are not defined by what you achieve, but by what you do every day to get closer to it. Real change happens in the process, in those moments where no one applauds, when you doubt yourself, when you keep going, even though you don't know if it will work. The modern world has made us believe everything should be instant. We want to change our lives in a week, see results in a month, and feel different overnight. But that's not how the mind, the body, or the soul works. Discipline and consistency are like water on stone. They don't break it in one hit. They shape it over time. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius, after leading battles, signing decrees, and enduring betrayal, wrote in his journal every night, not to brag about his triumphs, but to examine his mistakes, his reactions, his thoughts. He did it in silence, with no audience, because he knew that becoming better was more important than being recognized. That was how he grew, by facing himself every single day with honesty. And that's the part most people don't want to accept. That growth hurts, that the process doesn't always look good, that sometimes it feels like nothing is happening. But right there, in that space where you feel stuck, is where you're changing the most. When you master patience, when you learn to keep going without seeing results, That's when you start building a strength no one can take from you. Seneca said it clearly, nothing blooms instantly under force. Anything truly valuable takes time. A tree doesn't bear fruit the day it's planted. First, it grows roots, even if no one sees them. That's what's happening with you. While others only care about the fruits, you're strengthening what will hold them up. That invisible part of the process is what truly transforms you. So ask yourself, are you comparing yourself to other people's progress or to your own growth? Because the ones who truly move forward don't look sideways. They look back, only to see how far they've come. The real competition isn't out there, it's with yourself. The real win isn't arriving first, it's not stopping. Think of that person who trains alone every morning. No music, no cameras, no one watching, just their breath and determination. No one sees them, no one congratulates them. But right there in the silence, they're building character. The same thing happens with you when you push yourself without recognition. That invisible effort is what makes you stronger, more focused, more free. Start tracking your small wins. Write down each day you did what you said you would, even if it was just a tiny step. Change how you view progress. Instead of thinking, I'm not there yet, say, I'm not where I used to be. Because every day you stay the course, even without seeing change, you're closer than you think. And when you feel frustrated, remember, slow days count too. They're the ones that build your resilience. They're the days that force you to trust in your own process. You're not going backwards, you're maturing. The process is a victory, because it's the only part you control. The results will come when they come. But the journey is shaping you in silence. Every step, every fall, every try, they're molding you into the person you said you wanted to be. 3 months of consistency can transform your life more than 10 years of half-hearted efforts. Not because they're magical, but because they force you to believe in the process, not the result. And when you learn that, everything changes. If you've made it this far, I already know. There's something in you that won't let you quit. You've fallen, you've doubted, but you're still here, still searching for how to become better. And that says a lot about you, but there's still one spark missing. The one that connects everything. Because you can have discipline, consistency, and strength, but if you don't transform the way you think, you'll stay stuck in the same limits. What's coming next isn't just another lesson. It's the one that ignites everything you've built so far. Lesson number 25. You're not anyone's backup. Has it ever happened to you that people only call you when someone else bails? That you're never anyone's first choice, but you still drop everything to show up? They say, Carlos can't make it, can you come instead? And you go, even though you're tired, even though you've got a million things to do, even though you promised yourself this Saturday would be yours to finally rest. But you don't know how to say no, because when you do, guilt creeps in. You're afraid they'll leave you out, because without even realizing it, other people have become your priority, even when you're not theirs. They text you and you reply instantly, even though you were in the middle of your favorite show. They call with a quick thing, and suddenly you're on the phone for an hour, listening to problems that aren't even yours. They invite you to a meeting only because no one else could go, and you show up, prepared, involved, hoping that this time they'll count on you for real. But no, you're not there to decide, just to fill in. And when you need something, that's when the phones stop ringing. That's when "I'll let you know" never happens. And the worst part? You keep showing up every time like you're everyone's backup plan, except your own. Like your life can stay on pause while people ask for favors, while they need you, while you keep abandoning yourself. Because saying no scares you. You're afraid they'll exclude you, afraid of seeming selfish, afraid that if you finally start putting yourself first, you won't know who you are. But my friend, let me make something clear. No one is going to give back the time you lost putting out fires that weren't yours. It's like you're that half-dry pen everyone uses because it's always there. Never the favorite, never the prettiest. But it works. Until one day, It runs out of ink. And what do? They toss it without a second thought. And you, who were always available, realize no one was truly there for you. They used you until you were drained, and now you're left alone with the exhaustion. That's exactly what happened to Mel Robbins. On her podcast, she's blunt. For years, she couldn't say no. She said yes to everything: meetings, favors, commitments, even when she was falling apart inside. Until one day, she woke up with no energy, no voice, no motivation, and she realized she had erased herself, disappeared behind everyone else's needs. That was her turning point. She started saying no, blocking out time in her calendar for her priorities, showing herself respect, and what she thought would feel like rejection turned out to be freedom. You know who else had it figured out? Seneca. He didn't sugarcoat it. No wind is favorable to the sailor who doesn't know where he's going. Because if you keep changing course every time someone needs you, when are you steering your own ship? If you live just to be available, your life becomes someone else's calendar. And my friend, the time you give away doesn't come back. So if you want to take back control, it starts with putting yourself at the center. If you're tired of being everyone's backup, listen to this. First, stop replying instantly, not to punish but to honor your own pace. If you're watching a movie, finish it. If you're eating, enjoy it in peace. Whoever values you will wait, and whoever won't, never valued you anyway. Next, make a list of your non-negotiables. What are the things you're no longer postponing for anyone? Maybe it's your rest, maybe your personal project, maybe just an afternoon to yourself. Write them down, read them every week, and remember Seneca's words: if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up wherever others drag you. And lastly, practice saying no, literally. Thanks for thinking of me, but it doesn't work for me this time. No made-up excuses, no over-explaining. Saying no is also a way of saying yes to yourself. So tell me, are you going to keep waiting for someone to pick you, or are you finally going to pick yourself? Because you're not here to fill in the gaps, you're here to take up space. And only when you prioritize yourself without guilt will you start to see the world shift around you. Because when you take yourself seriously, others learn to do the same. And it all starts by stopping being the backup and finally becoming what you are, your own priority. Lesson 26. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Has this ever happened to you? You set out to do something, but instead of getting started, you get stuck in the tiniest details. You adjust the color of an icon 17 times in a presentation. You go to send a voice note on WhatsApp and record 10 versions of the same greeting. The first one sounded too serious. The second one felt fake. And just like that, you're caught in a loop. Or you leave an email sitting in drafts because you can't decide whether to end it with best regards or warm wishes. You call it perfectionism or high standards, but really, it's just insecurity in a fancy jacket. The truth is, insecurity rarely shows up yelling. It usually whispers in silence, disguised as not yet. It's like being stuck at a traffic light that never turns green. You stay in this eternal yellow, always about to, always waiting. And while you wait for that perfect moment that never comes, life moves on. What could have been an experience, an opportunity, or a project stays frozen. It reminds me of the story of a chef who opened what he called a beta restaurant. His idea was simple: serve dishes at 80%, let customers try them, then improve them based on feedback. The place was packed. Right across the street, another chef had kept his restaurant closed for 2 years, waiting until his menu was flawless. Guess who made progress? One understood that improvement happens in public. The other stayed stuck in his cave. And that's the problem. Chasing perfection takes you further away from sharing what's inside you. You work so hard to make everything flawless that you forget the most important part: doing it. You keep waiting for the perfect moment, like it's going to show up on its own, but it won't. Marcus Aurelius wrote it clearly in his Meditations. Don't wait for Plato's Republic. Be content if you're moving forward, even just a little. In other words, stop putting your life on hold for something ideal. Celebrate small progress. That's where true strength lives. Picture him today with a digital task board, dragging a card to done with a smile. Don't wait for Plato's Republic or the perfect filter. And here's the thing, science backs it up. Researchers like Thomas Curran and Andrew Hill studied decades of data and found that perfectionism has skyrocketed in recent generations. And with that, so have anxiety and depression. More perfection means less well-being. We're not talking about discipline. We're talking about insecurity disguised as high standards. Think of a real example from your life. Let's say you're putting together a portfolio for a project. You've spent 3 weeks deciding whether thumbnail 3 needs a 12% or 16% shadow. Meanwhile, someone else with fewer doubts already sent theirs in, got feedback, improved it in 2 rounds, and is now getting paid. The difference wasn't talent, it was action. Here's the key. Every time you take action, even while afraid, you send a message to your mind. You say, I can trust myself. And that's worth more than any perfection. My friend, insecurity is defeated through action, not when everything is flawless, but when you have the courage to start, even clumsily. Because confidence isn't found in waiting, it's built. So what can you do to break out of that mental loop where insecurity keeps you stuck? Try something simple. First, try the public 80-20. Take something you're working on, anything, a text, a design, a video. Instead of tweaking it endlessly, stop when it's 80% done. Share that version, even if it feels unfinished. Show it to a friend, send it to a client, or post it in your community. Let the world give you feedback and improve it along the way. Trust me, moving forward with something imperfect teaches you more than spending weeks locked in, fixing a detail no one will ever notice. Second, try the error date. Set a 25-minute timer and pick a task you've been avoiding out of fear of messing up. Send that email, record that video, show that rough draft. Do it in that time and send it as it is. When that little voice pops up saying it's not perfect, answer out loud, progress matters more than appearance. And keep going. My friend, next time perfection tries to keep you parked, remember that traffic light stuck on yellow. If you wait for it to turn green, you'll be stuck there forever. You're the one who has to move, even if you're unsure. Because in the end, confidence isn't built by avoiding mistakes. It's built by daring to try so many times that you stop fearing them. So tell me, what could you finally let go of this week if you stopped chasing perfection? If you truly want to eliminate insecurity from your mind, the answer isn't perfection, it's movement. The courage to show up, to fail, and to learn. Confidence is born from repetition, not from a lack of mistakes. Lesson 27. Be quiet and prove it. My friend, what's the point of saying you're going to change if you already know you won't? How many times have you promised to start on Monday, only for Monday to bring just another excuse? Do you realize you've become your own saboteur? When you're always talking about what you're going to do but never actually doing it, what you're really looking for is a pat on the back, some quick validation. But that's not prioritizing yourself. Truly prioritizing yourself, my friend, is doing what you need to do, even if no one sees it, even if no one claps for you. Picture this. You tell your friends you're going to change your habits, that this time you're getting up early, putting your phone away at night, eating well, and working out. You get hyped up by their, "That's awesome," and "Good for you." Monday comes. You sleep in, skip breakfast, and tell yourself, "Well, I'll start tomorrow." Tuesday, you order fast food because you're stressed. By Wednesday, you've forgotten everything you said. But in your mind, you still feel good, because you already said it. And there's the trap. You feel like you've made progress, just because you announced it, not because you did it. If you need a real-world example, look at what Nathaniel Drew did. He realized that talking about his goals publicly drained the energy he needed to follow through. He said every time he said it out loud, it felt like he'd already accomplished something, without having done a thing. So he made a choice. Work in silence. Stop announcing. And the change was real. In one of his videos, he says it clearly. Some things are better built in the dark, because when you stop chasing applause, you finally get results. Epictetus put it even more bluntly over 2,000 years ago. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Don't talk about what you're going to do it. Don't share your plans just to get encouragement. Follow through, even if no one knows. He was enslaved for part of his life, yet lived with such integrity that we still remember him today. Can you picture Epictetus saying, "Starting Monday, I'll be more disciplined"? No, because he was already doing it. So if you're tired of feeling empty after all those broken promises, do the opposite. Stop saying it. Protect yourself from your own smoke. Start in silence. If you're going to wake up early, set the alarm. But tell no one. Just do it. If you're cutting sugar, don't post about it. Just do it. If you're starting a project, don't post pics of your laptop. Just work. Not to hide, but to protect what matters. And if someday you wonder whether it's worth doing things without telling anyone, remember this. Nothing shines brighter than someone who changes without asking for permission. Because real change doesn't make noise. You see it in someone's energy, in their eyes, in their consistency. That's the kind of transformation that matters. The one that doesn't chase likes. The one that doesn't need witnesses. You are not what you announce, you are what you do. What you repeat. What you hold on to when no one's watching. And if today you choose to prioritize yourself, don't let the world hear it. Let them feel it. Because that's the kind of change that truly transforms your life from the inside out. That's the change that gives you back control. Lesson 28. Choose the pain that makes you grow. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. Pain doesn't go away. It just changes form. You can suffer through discipline or through regret, through effort or through guilt, but you will suffer either way. The difference is in the kind of pain you choose to live with. One builds you, the other breaks you. And the most surprising part? Most people spend their lives running from pain, without realizing that by doing so, they end up trapped in something far worse. The pain of having done nothing. So what do you think a Stoic would choose? Without a doubt, the pain that makes them stronger. Picture a block of marble. At first glance, it looks like nothing, just a shapeless, worthless stone. But in the hands of a sculptor, every strike of the chisel chips away pieces to reveal something beautiful hidden inside. That's how life works. Every blow you take, every hard moment, every struggle that challenges you, it's sculpting you. You may not see it yet, but you're being carved into something greater. And what hurts now might be the very shape of your strength tomorrow. Seneca lived this firsthand. He was exiled unjustly, accused of crimes he didn't commit, sent far from Rome, far from power, far from everything he knew. Anyone else would have crumbled. But he chose something different. Instead of sinking, he wrote, "Sometimes what looks like punishment is actually preparation." He didn't choose suffering. He chose what he could learn from it. He turned pain into wisdom, defeat into training, and that mindset made him unbreakable. Now think about yourself. How many times have you avoided something just because you knew it would hurt? That conversation you were scared to have. That routine you were too lazy to start. That habit you quit because your body begged for rest. The strange thing is, the pain didn't disappear. It just changed form. You traded it for frustration, for guilt, for that quiet weight of knowing you could have done more. Pain, my friend, is not the enemy. It's the teacher. Marcus Aurelius summed it up in one golden idea. What stands in the way becomes the way. If something hurts, there's a good chance you're exactly where you need to be. Because what makes you uncomfortable transforms you. What challenges you shapes you. What demands more from you lifts you. Think of it this way. Your body reacts to physical effort the same way your mind reacts to emotional effort. When you lift weights, your muscles tear a little. It hurts. But that pain is the signal they're growing. If you run from that process, you stay weak. Same thing with your mind. If you never expose it to discomfort, it never gets stronger. Every uncomfortable conversation, every failure, every rejection, it's invisible training. Next time you feel discomfort, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask something more useful. Is this pain breaking me or training me? If it's the first, learn and walk away. If it's the second, hold on. Because that kind of pain is preparing you for what's next. And once you understand that, you stop running from everything that hurts and start choosing what's worth enduring. There's a kind of peace that only comes after effort, the one that shows up when you know you gave your all, even if no one clapped. That feeling of having defeated your mind, even when your body begged to quit. 3 months of choosing the right kind of pain can change everything, not because life stops hurting, but because you learn to use every hit as fuel. Discipline, consistency, and self-control are exactly that, a way of turning suffering into growth. Pain doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It builds up. But when you go through it with purpose, it becomes experience. And experience turns into wisdom. Every effort you make today is shaping your character. And even if you can't see it yet, you're building something solid inside you. Seneca did it in exile. Marcus Aurelius did it in the midst of war. You can do it in your routine, in your silence. In every morning you choose not to quit. We're all being sculpted by something. Some people let life hit them at random. Others choose which blows to accept, which lessons to learn, and what version of themselves they want to reveal. You can't avoid pain, but you can choose to make yours meaningful. So choose wisely. Let the pain that walks with you be the pain of growth, not regret. The pain of effort, not guilt. Because in the end, every wound you face with purpose becomes a mark of strength. And every day you endure with discipline, consistency, and control brings you closer to that version of yourself that's still being carved, but already starting to shine. And remember, my friend, pain will find you either way. So make sure that when it does, it finds you on the path that leads to growth, not the one that leaves you unchanged. Lesson 29. Turn doubt into action. Have you noticed that the more you think about something, the bigger and harder it seems? It's like blowing up a balloon. One breath, nothing major. Another breath, it grows. By the fifth, you're no longer enjoying it. You're just bracing for the pop. And in the end, the fear isn't in the balloon. It's in your head, telling you to stop before something explodes. That's exactly how insecurity works. It grows on its own while you wait for the perfect moment. And if you need proof of what it means to act even when afraid, listen to this. Picture the scene. The year is 1932. Amelia Earhart stands on the runway, staring at a plane that looks too fragile for the ocean waiting ahead. It's cold, the wind is fierce, and no one around her can guarantee success. She could have stayed on the ground, frozen by doubt. She could have told herself, "I'm not ready. Maybe later." But she didn't. She climbed into the cockpit, fastened her helmet, and took off. Hours later, she became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. And when asked how she did it, her answer was simple. The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. Amelia didn't wait for fear to go away. She didn't let doubt take over her mind. She chose to move, and that action is what transformed fear into confidence. Seneca warned of this in his letters. It's not that we have little time, but that we waste a lot. And wasting time isn't just lounging on the couch. It's also getting stuck in loops of overthinking, going over the same, "What if I fail?" and "What if this doesn't work?" again and again. Every minute spent in that cycle is fuel for insecurity. Here's something curious. Your brain operates in a very specific way. When you just think, worry grows and multiplies. But the moment you act, even in a tiny way, everything changes. It's as if the brain finally gets the message, "Okay, we're doing this." That spark cuts through the noise, and insecurity begins to shrink. Now imagine you've been thinking of launching an online project. You've spent months watching tutorials, signing up for courses, designing logos, picking out colors, but still, nothing's published. You tell yourself you're preparing, but really you're feeding insecurity. Meanwhile, someone with less experience already launched a rough version, got feedback, improved along the way, and is making progress. The difference wasn't talent, it was movement. So what can you do to stop letting insecurity run the show? Start with something ridiculously small. If you haven't posted anything in months, publish a simple landing page. Your hand might shake as you hit publish, but that tiny action is worth more than 100 unstarted courses sitting in your downloads folder. Next, instead of obsessing over getting everything perfect, aim to get real feedback. Share your idea with a couple of trusted people and ask what they think. That input is gold. It helps you improve while you move forward, instead of staying trapped in theory. And finally, give yourself a weekly challenge. Write it down and stick to it, even if no one's watching. Something like, "This week I publish my first article," or "This week I send out a pitch email." It doesn't matter if it looks small from the outside. What matters is that it's real. When you follow through, even if it's uncomfortable, your brain gets the message, "I can trust myself." My friend, every time you choose to act, even in a small way, you are turning insecurity into real confidence. Doubt screams the loudest when you're standing still. But it goes quiet the moment you take a step. Amelia Earhart knew it. The hardest part is making the decision to act. Everything else follows. And that's the key. Confidence doesn't appear when fear vanishes. It shows up when you decide to move despite the fear. Because the only way to eliminate insecurity from your mind is to stop inflating the balloon and dare to let it go. Lesson 30. Let go of what no longer makes sense. Think about that drawer we all have at home, full of cables you don't even recognize anymore. Old HDMI cords, chargers for phones that don't exist, adapters that feel like relics from another century. And yet they're still there, taking up space. Why do we keep them? Because maybe one day they might come in handy. Meanwhile, all they really do is clutter up a drawer that could be empty, ready for something new. Your mind works the same way when you cling to things that have already expired. Old ideas, relationships that no longer bring value, fears that no longer make sense. And just like those cables, you keep them just in case. The result is the same, zero space for what really matters. The interesting part is that this habit of not letting go is closely tied to insecurity. Because even if something old no longer works, even if it makes no sense, it gives you the illusion of safety. It's like telling yourself, "Here, I'm safe, here, I'm not exposed to the unknown." But that's not safety. It's a break. It's like being tied to a moving train and trying to stop it by grabbing the rails with your hands. The more you resist, the more it hurts. Zeno of Citium illustrated this with his metaphor of a dog tied to a cart. If it walks along, it flows. If it resists, it gets hurt. The cart is life, and you decide whether to walk with it or get dragged. The same thing happened in the story of Microsoft. When Satya Nadella became CEO, the company was clinging to its identity as desktop software. It was who they'd always been. It felt safe. But the world had already moved to the cloud. AI was advancing fast, and holding on to that mindset was like staring at the cable drawer, hoping those wires would come back in style. Nadella understood that not letting go meant dying as a giant of the past. So he shifted, and by releasing what no longer made sense, he found clarity and opened up a new future for the company. Seneca spoke about this too, in his letters to Lucilius. Everything flows. Nothing remains the same. What he meant was that resisting change only adds pain. Life is constant transition. And if you accept that, if you understand that what's necessary today may be obsolete tomorrow, you stop living in tension and start finding peace. Now picture this, you're in a job you can't stand. And for 5 years, you've been saying the same thing. Once the crisis passes, I'll quit. The crisis passed. 2 of them, even 3. And you're still there. The attachment isn't to the paycheck, it's to that false sense of safety. That voice saying, if I let go, I'll have nothing. But what's really happening is that you're losing pieces of your life every day you stay in the same place. And here's the key question. What mental drawer are you filling with things that no longer serve you? Maybe it's a relationship that drains your energy, a belief that keeps you stuck in fear, a project that died long ago but you're too scared to let go. There are simple ways to train this skill of letting go. The first is very literal. Open a real drawer in your home. Take out 3 objects you don't use anymore and throw them away. As you do it, ask yourself, what belief or relationship deserves the same fate? That physical gesture creates space in your mind too. Next, write down everything you've lost in the last 3 years. People, places, life phases. Then write what each loss brought you in return. You'll start to see that even the painful things, over time, gave you a new way to grow. And when you see that in writing, your perspective shifts. It's no longer just absence, it's transformation. You can also repeat a quote from Seneca every time fear of change creeps in. Even while I speak of change, I have already changed. Because it's true. While you hesitate, you're no longer the same person you were a minute ago. Life moves forward. It doesn't wait for you to make up your mind. My friend, insecurity grows when you hold on to the old like it's a life raft. But in reality, it's an anchor that won't let you move forward. Change always brings vertigo. The new always brings doubt. But only by letting go can you make space for clarity and confidence to show up. If it's hard, picture Marcus Aurelius canceling his Netflix subscription and saying, "Everything that changes your life gets canceled before the next billing cycle." And smile, because humor helps you release too. So, let go. You'll realize that the thing you were so afraid to lose was exactly what was stopping you from eliminating insecurity from your mind. Clarity doesn't come from piling more on. It comes from releasing. What could you let go of today so you can start walking lighter tomorrow? Lesson 31. Start building your own path. Imagine you're walking along the shoreline. You see footprints in the sand and decide to follow them. They seem safe, as if someone already tested the ground for you. You walk and walk, but after a while the tide washes those footprints away. You stop, look back, and realize there's nothing behind you. That's when it hits you. You never left your own mark. You were just stepping into someone else's. Life works the same way. When you choose to live according to what others expect, you end up on a path that doesn't feel like yours. And that's the perfect recipe for insecurity. Think about it. How many of your decisions have been just to avoid disappointing someone? You studied a degree you didn't care about because it sounded prestigious. You accepted a job that didn't motivate you because it seemed stable. You said yes to commitments you didn't want just to avoid judgment. And then one day you look in the mirror and something feels off. You're living a life that isn't yours. It's a Frankenstein of other people's expectations. No wonder insecurity takes over. How are you supposed to trust yourself when you've never had the courage to truly listen to yourself? J.K. Rowling's story reflects this perfectly. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, her manuscript was rejected over 10 times. She could have shoved it in a drawer, convinced that the world was right and she had nothing to offer. But she didn't. She chose to build her own path, even in silence, even without validation. She kept going, trusting that her story mattered, even if no one else could see it yet. That choice to walk with purpose was what turned her insecurity into confidence. Even a Roman emperor asked himself the same question. Is it worth carrying a weight you didn't choose? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it's bearable, then bear it. Stop complaining." It might sound harsh, but it's freeing. Because what matters isn't whether the weight is heavy or light. It's whether it's yours. Carrying a burden you chose, even if it's tough, makes you stronger. Dragging around one that was handed to you, even if it's light, wears you down. Living with purpose means accepting the effort, yes, but with the certainty that you're building something that's truly yours. You probably know a story like this. Someone studies law because it's a respectable career, but deep down, they dream of making music. They live in that disconnect for years, surrounded by textbooks and exams that mean nothing to them, while their guitar gathers dust in the corner. The insecurity grows because even though they're getting good grades, they feel like they're living halfway. Until one day, they record their first song and realize something powerful. It was never about lack of talent. It was about never making a decision of their own. That one step changes everything, because for the first time, they're standing on ground they chose. So my friend, if you want to walk toward real confidence, you have to start building your own path. Not tomorrow. Not when others approve. Now try this. Write down your personal goal, even if no one understands it or claps for it. Maybe you want to learn photography, even though everyone around you says there's no money in that. Or maybe you dream of running a marathon, even though you've never been sporty. That piece of paper isn't for convincing the world. It's to remind you that your desire deserves space. It's like planting the first seed of a tree. You might not see it yet, but it's already growing roots. Then, do a simple but powerful exercise. Think of 3 things you do only for external approval. Maybe you stay in a WhatsApp group that adds nothing to your life, just so people won't be offended if you leave. Maybe you say yes to every weekend plan even when you're exhausted, just so no one thinks you're boring. Maybe you dress a certain way because someone told you years ago that it suits you, even though it no longer feels like you. Write them down and let go of at least one this week. It'll feel awkward at first, but then comes the relief, like taking off a backpack you didn't even realize you were carrying. And add this. Create a simple daily ritual to remind yourself that your path is built one step at a time. It could be a phrase you write on a post-it and stick on your bathroom mirror. Something like, "Today, I live for me." It could be spending 5 quiet minutes on a personal project before opening your inbox. Or even something symbolic, like wearing a bracelet or ring that reminds you of your commitment to yourself. It doesn't need to be big. What matters is that every morning you see something that reminds you. You're not living someone else's life. You're finally building your own. Lesson 32. No one's coming to catch you if you break. Has it ever happened to you that the whole day crashes down on you, but you just keep going like nothing's wrong? Like you've got an infinite battery. Like breaking down isn't an option. Like being strong is your only identity. Until one day, out of nowhere, you just can't anymore. And that's when you realize something. No one has a rescue plan ready for you. No one's going to stop their world just because yours is falling apart. And as painful as that is, that's what changes everything. We live as if being indispensable gives us value, as if being available all the time makes us good people. But let me tell you an uncomfortable truth. You are replaceable. Not just at work, in WhatsApp groups, in family dinners, in last-minute favors. And if you don't put yourself at the center of your own life, if you don't take that place that no one else can fill for you, then everything else will slowly replace you. You'll start fading. And the worst part is you won't even notice. Does this scene sound familiar? It's Thursday, 8 p.m., and you've already worked 10 hours. A message pops up in your work group asking for a quick favor. You say yes, even though your eyes are burning and your neck is in pieces. The weekend rolls around and you're a chauffeur for your mom, a therapist for your friend, a babysitter for your nephew, the perfect partner. Even though deep down, all you want is to lie on the floor and not get up. And when you finally break, because yes, even your soul can break, what happens? Nothing. The meeting still happens. The WhatsApp keeps buzzing, and you're left picking up the pieces you didn't even realize you dropped. Seneca warned us centuries ago, when you care for everyone but yourself, you're not being generous, you're being careless. He didn't say it to judge, he said it from experience. Because if the Stoics knew one thing, it's this. You can't act with virtue if you don't first build your inner strength. It's not selfishness. It's foundation. It's the bare minimum you need so you don't collapse. And if that's hard to accept, think about Demi Lovato. For years, she was the face of, "I can handle it all." Success, tours, interviews, smiling. But it was all a front. In her documentary, Dancing with the Devil, she says something that hits you in the gut. My life became a performance, but it wasn't a stage. It was a cage. And that cage eventually shut. She collapsed. Because just pushing through isn't enough. If you're not okay on the inside, sooner or later, everything falls apart. I'm sorry to say it, my friend, but you've abandoned yourself. And as psychologist Lisa Oliveira explains, that's a quiet form of self-destruction. She calls it self-abandonment, the habit of silencing what you feel, postponing what you need, ignoring your own exhaustion until you explode. You do it out of habit, guilt, loyalty, but also out of fear of disappointing others. Even though the only real disappointment is with yourself. And yes, I know this part sounds intense, but just picture Seneca getting a late meeting invite at 9 p.m., glancing at his soul cultivation calendar and saying in a dry voice, "No, my friend, I've got an appointment with my peace." If even he would set boundaries, why wouldn't you? Are you ready to start taking care of yourself without guilt? Then do this. Turn off your phone 1 hour before bed. Don't let anyone else access your energy when you don't even have enough for yourself. Call it mental hygiene. And what can you do during that hour? Give yourself a soft routine, a hot shower, some tea, a chapter of that book you keep putting off, or just stare out the window and do nothing, because disconnecting from the outside is the only way to reconnect with yourself. Also, do something every day that's just for you. A walk with no destination, a slow breakfast, 5 minutes of silence. It doesn't have to be useful, it just has to nourish you. Because you're not some mug that can always be refilled. You're more like a one-of-a-kind piece. And when that piece breaks, no one's coming with emotional superglue to put you back together. Only you can do that. And the sooner you understand it, the sooner you stop breaking and start truly taking care of yourself. Lesson number 33. Know yourself better than you appear to. Let me ask you something honestly. Do you really know yourself? And I don't mean those silly personality tests that tell you whether you're more of a margarita or 4-cheese pizza. I mean truly knowing yourself. Knowing what drives you, what scares you, and which decisions you're making just because other people expect you to. Because insecurity doesn't come out of nowhere. It shows up when you spend more time looking outward than inward. Think about it. You spend weekends going to plans you don't even enjoy, just because others do. You stay out late at dinners, nodding and smiling, even though deep down you wish you were home reading in peace. You laugh at jokes that don't make you laugh, sign up for projects that don't speak to you, and even choose your clothes based more on what others might think than on what makes you feel good. And here's the catch. The moment you finally think about doing something just for yourself, insecurity shows up. You think about starting that long-postponed project, and your mind floods with doubts. What if I'm not good at this? What if they criticize me? What if I fail? You consider saying no to dinner plans to stay in and rest, and guilt creeps in. They're going to think I'm boring. It's like your energy flows freely when it's for others, but gets blocked the moment it's about listening to yourself. That's the real drain. Living in a costume designed for others, while your own voice stays buried. And that disconnection from yourself is the perfect breeding ground for insecurity. Because how are you supposed to feel confident if you never even give yourself the chance to find out who you really are? History reminds us of this again and again. Socrates said, "Know thyself." And yeah, I know, it sounds like a cliche you'd see on a t-shirt, but it goes much deeper. For him, the real enemy wasn't ignorance, but the illusion of knowing everything when you actually know nothing. Self-deception was the root of insecurity, because it led you to make choices without truly understanding who you are, what you want, or what you're avoiding. Seneca also said it beautifully in his letters to Lucilius. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. And do you know what that means for you? That when you don't really know yourself, your mind creates fears, believes them, and multiplies them. But when you learn to observe yourself, you begin to see which fears are real and which are just ghosts made by your mind. That distinction is what takes you from doubt to confidence. So how do you start getting to know yourself beyond the surface? You don't have to go meditate in the Himalayas or blow money on a trendy retreat. It's simpler and also harder. Take a few minutes a day to write about how you reacted to a specific situation and what emotion was underneath. Because often what you call anger isn't anger, it's fear in disguise. What you call indifference might actually be pain you'd rather not face. As psychologist Brené Brown says, truly knowing yourself isn't just about accepting the nice parts, it's also about facing the uncomfortable ones, what you hide, what's hard to admit. Because real confidence doesn't come from pretending you've got it all together. It comes from seeing yourself fully, with both light and shadow, and moving forward anyway. That emotional courage is what turns insecurity into strength. Here's another idea: break out of autopilot. Try this experiment for one day. Question 3 small decisions. Ask yourself, do I really want this coffee, or is it just habit? Do I really want to go to this event, or am I just afraid of disappointing someone? Tiny things, but in those moments, you'll see how often you're acting for others instead of for yourself. And here's a practice that might feel uncomfortable, but it works. Stand in front of the mirror and ask yourself, what am I tolerating that's actually hurting me? Don't aim for pretty answers. Aim for truth. Write it down. You might be surprised to realize that what's been feeding your insecurity isn't what's missing from your life, but what you've been putting up with for far too long. When you finally start to know yourself for real, your life stops being a theater of masks and becomes a clear, honest path. And that's where the shift happens. What used to be insecurity turns into confidence because you no longer need anyone's approval to walk with purpose. So ask yourself today, do you want to keep playing a role in a story written by someone else? Or start writing your own script? Because only by knowing yourself better than you appear to others can you truly eliminate insecurity from your mind and live with the clarity you've been searching for. Lesson 34. Forge your mindset from the very first minute of the day. Begin each day by thinking about the difficulties you're going to face. Marcus Aurelius didn't write this to scare himself. He did it to strengthen himself. He did it because he knew the most important battle isn't fought out there, but inside your head. And that battle starts the moment you open your eyes. The first minute of your day isn't just a detail. It's the moment where you decide if you'll master your mind or let it master you. Think about this. Every morning is like a burning forge. The metal you throw into it, your thoughts, your emotions, your first decisions, will determine whether your mind becomes an unbreakable shield or a piece of glass ready to shatter. Many people believe their weakness shows up in big problems, arguments, failure, loss. But the truth is, it starts much earlier, in those first quiet moments of the day when autopilot takes over. You see it in the simplest situations. You wake up and the first thing you do is check your phone. Endless scrolling, comparisons, fake urgency. In less than 5 minutes, your mind no longer belongs to you. It's filled with other people's noise, with expectations that aren't yours, with thoughts that sabotage your peace. Then you wonder why it's so hard to focus, why any criticism breaks you down, or why you live in a constant state of anxiety. My friend, the truth is, you're not forging your mind, you're leaving it defenseless. The Stoics had a name for this training, the premeditation of evils. It wasn't an exercise in pessimism. It was about strength. It meant preparing your mind for the inevitable. Difficult people, mistakes, injustice, loss. By visualizing them at the start of the day, they reduced their emotional impact. It was like building a wall before the storm hit. And that wall gave them something the outside world could never offer: control over their reactions. Today, 2,000 years later, we still need that same practice. But instead of premeditating, we let ourselves get dragged around. Instead of deciding how we'll respond, we just react to whatever shows up. And that one difference changes everything. Because a strong mind isn't born in crisis. It's shaped in routine. And every morning is a new chance to shape it. And that's something many high performers do too. Take director Christopher Nolan, for example. the mind behind some of the most complex and successful films in recent decades. He has a habit few people know about. Every morning he spends 20 minutes in total silence. No phone, no emails, no news. He does it to clear his mind, anticipate the day's obstacles, and decide how he'll respond. In his own words, chaos always shows up, but if your mind is clear at the start of the day, nothing can drag you down with it. That simple ritual, repeated over the years, is what's allowed him to work under massive pressure without losing focus or balance. And that's the difference between a fragile mind and a forged one. You can start forging yours with a few simple steps. When you wake up, take a minute to remind yourself that things will go wrong. And that's okay. Maybe someone will disappoint you, maybe a plan will fail, maybe the day will hit harder than expected. If you expect it, it won't break you. In fact, every obstacle will become part of your training. Then, set a clear intention. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? Not what you want to achieve, but how you want to respond to the world. This question shifts your perspective because it brings your focus to what's in your control. And that's one of the most powerful teachings in Stoicism. You can't always control what happens outside, but your attitude is always in your hands. Lastly, create your own mental anchor. It could be a phrase you repeat, like, "Nothing external can harm me unless I let it." A short breathing exercise, or even writing down 3 ideas you want to keep in mind throughout the day. This small habit acts like a compass when the chaos begins to hit. At first, your mind will resist. It'll tell you there's no time, that it's unnecessary, that there are more urgent things to do. But remember this, the soldier doesn't wait to be on the battlefield to start training. He prepares every day, even when there's no war. You're doing the same, building the foundation of a mind that won't break at the first hit. The Stoics didn't aim to eliminate pain or fear. They aimed to never be ruled by them. They knew the storm would come, but they also knew they could learn to stand through it. And that's what you're doing when you choose to forge your mindset from the first minute of the day. Lesson 35. Your body trains your mind. Picture a sword forged for battle. At first, it shines, it cuts with precision, it commands respect. But if you leave it untouched, covered in dust, unused, it starts to rust. It loses its edge. It becomes useless. That's exactly what happens to you. Your body is that sword, the instrument you use to move through the world. If you let it rust, don't expect your mind to stay sharp, because even if we try to separate them, body and mind aren't distant enemies. They're inseparable allies. And when one falls, the other follows. The Stoics knew this well. They weren't thinkers locked away in ivory towers. They were men of action. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write deep reflections in his war tent. He marched beside his soldiers through rain and mud. Epictetus, despite his disability, insisted on training his body because he understood his mind needed that resilience. For them, the body was a training ground for character. It wasn't vanity, it was strategy. And now I want you to be brutally honest with yourself. How many times have you said, "I'll start Monday"? How many times have you promised, "This time for real, you'll take care of yourself"? Only to come up with another excuse? Every single one of those moments is like another layer of rust on your sword. You say you don't have time, but you waste it on screens. You say you don't have energy, but you forget that moving is what creates it. The problem isn't your body. The problem is your mind has already given up before even starting. Let me tell you something most people don't know. When Charles Darwin set off on his famous voyage aboard the Beagle, he spent months in brutal conditions. Hunger, cold, illness. But he never stopped walking, climbing, moving. In his journals, he wrote that those daily walks, as exhausting as they were his way of thinking clearly and keeping his morale high. His body wasn't just a vehicle, it was the tool that kept his mind awake. And thanks to that physical strength, he was able to develop the ideas that changed the history of science. And you, even if you're not exploring new continents, are facing your own storms. the job that drains you, the worries that won't stop, the fear of failure. And if your body isn't ready, your mind will be the first to feel it, because without movement, there's no clarity. Without physical effort, there's no focus. Without bodily discipline, your willpower crumbles in everything else. Think of it this way. Your body is the first place where you can practice self-mastery. Waking up early, training even when you don't feel like it, going for a walk when your mind tells you to stay on the couch. None of that is just exercise. It's rebellion against weakness. Every drop of sweat is proof that you're in charge, and you don't need to do something epic. Sometimes 10 minutes of movement changes everything. Do you know why? Because when your body gets going, your brain releases dopamine, endorphins, serotonin. Those chemicals don't just lift your mood, they lower stress, boost focus, and increase your sense of control. It's like opening a window in a stuffy room. The air rushes in and suddenly, you can breathe. Feeling anxious? Walk. Struggling to concentrate? Move. Paralyzed by fear? Get up from the chair and make your body act. Because when the body moves, the mind stops spinning. And that's not cheap motivation. That's science working in service of your mental strength. My friend, your body is not a sidekick. It's your first fortress. And if that fortress is falling apart, everything else will collapse. There's no point in talking about building an unbreakable mind if every day you trap it in a weak, slow, exhausted body. This isn't about looks. It's about freedom. Because when your body responds, your mind dares. Try this experiment. The next time you feel overwhelmed, don't stay stuck in a loop of circular thoughts. Move. Walk for 5 minutes. Breathe deeply while you do it. Watch what happens. Your mind starts to settle, the anxiety fades, your thoughts become clearer. That's not magic. That's biology taking your side. Find a movement that makes you feel alive. Run, dance, swim, lift weights, or simply go for a walk. It doesn't matter what you do. What matters is why you do it. Because every time you choose to move, you're reminding yourself that you can take action, that you're in control. And with every decision you make in favor of your body, you're training your mind too. Seneca said it plainly, a well-cared-for body is the reflection of an orderly mind. And he was right. It's not about showing off muscles or meeting shallow standards. It's about building the tool you'll use to fight your battles. If you neglect that tool, the inner war will be much harder to win. Lesson 36. Only the grateful become unbreakable. Picture someone waking up in the dark. It's early, too early. The alarm rings with that sound they hate, and the first thought is, another day, same as always. They get up, drag their feet to the kitchen, and let their coffee go cold while mentally listing everything they're missing. The money that hasn't come, the relationship that fell apart, the job that feels empty. They glance at the clock and sigh, I have nothing. But here's the strange part. They do have a lot. They've just stopped seeing it. Now imagine the same person, same hour, same life. But they open their eyes and breathe. Before thinking about what's missing, they feel that they're alive, that they can move, that the day is offering one more chance. They make the same coffee, but this time, they actually enjoy it. Not because their life is perfect, but because they've learned to see it differently. That tiny shift in how you look is what separates a mind trapped in scarcity from a mind that lives in abundance. That's what Marcus Aurelius practiced every morning. In his meditations, he didn't write to complain about the empire's problems. He wrote to remind himself of what he still had, his reason, his duty, his ability to act with virtue. He even gave thanks for the difficulties, because he understood that without difficulty there is no growth. Gratitude, for him, wasn't some soft emotion, it was mental training, a way to keep the mind strong in the face of the inevitable. And he wasn't alone. In the ancient Stoic schools, disciples began their day by reflecting on 3 things: what they had, what they could lose, and what they could endure. Not as a ritual for comfort, but as a way to toughen the soul. In Japan, Monks at certain Zen temples still follow a similar ritual. Before breakfast, they give silent thanks, not just for the food, but for the effort of those who grew it, the water that fed it, the sun that made it flourish. To them, gratitude isn't a courtesy. It's a recognition that nothing holds itself up alone. That daily practice is what keeps their minds steady, even when the outside world trembles. Think about your own days. How often do you feel frustrated about what you haven't achieved, without realizing you're surrounded by things you once dreamed of having? A home, health, someone who listens, the chance to keep trying. But if your mind is trained in scarcity, it doesn't see any of that. It only sees what's missing, never what's blooming. Can't you see? You're already rich. As Seneca said, "He who needs little is the richest of all." And that's exactly what gratitude teaches you. That abundance isn't measured by what you own, but by your ability to recognize it. Every time you give thanks, fear loses power. Every time you choose to see what is, instead of what's missing, you destroy a little more of the weakness that keeps you unsatisfied. The weak mind feeds on complaints. The strong mind is nourished by gratitude, not because it denies pain, but because it transforms it. Marcus Aurelius gave thanks for loss because it reminded him that nothing truly belongs to us. He gave thanks for obstacles because they forced him to grow. If you can give thanks even for what hurts, then nothing can take your peace away. Try it tomorrow. When you open your eyes, don't look at your phone. Look around and name 3 things you didn't appreciate yesterday. The smell of coffee, the quiet before the day begins, the simple fact that you're alive. Small things, but they have the power to shift your entire mindset. And when the hard days come, because they will, don't force yourself to smile. Just ask yourself, what can I still be grateful for even here? Maybe not the problem, but the strength it's giving you. Maybe not the loss, but the clarity it leaves behind. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, it reshapes it. It turns pain from an enemy into a teacher. Epictetus said something you should carve into your mind. Wealth is not in having much, but in needing little. If you can look around and see enough, you're already free. But if you always focus on what's missing, you'll live chained, even if you have everything. So now you know. If you want a strong mind, start with gratitude, not tomorrow, not when life is perfect, today. Because every day you live without it is a day your mind grows used to scarcity. And living in scarcity isn't living, it's surviving with your eyes closed. But listen closely now, because what comes next is what will truly test everything you've learned. What you're about to hear is the final piece, the one that can either destroy your weakness for good or leave it in charge of your life forever. Discipline yourself even when you don't feel like it. Stay consistent, even when no one's watching. Force yourself to grow, even when it hurts. Because transformation doesn't happen in a single day. It happens through the small actions you repeat when no one is looking. 3 months can change everything if you decide to stop postponing your life and start building it with intention, presence, and courage. If you've made it this far, write this in the comments. My discipline is my identity. They say those who stay until the end always find their reward, and you just did. So I invite you to subscribe, like, and share this video with someone who might need it. Click now on the videos you see on screen, because the journey is just beginning.